really wanted to see that. I really wanted to see. Yeah, but
So Janet's actually here and she's going to take minutes. She just didn't want to sit up here. I told her we could tag team it. That was fine.
where do we keep going further? We always hung that down around 4, all of a sudden back up about 5. Seems to me.
Certainly. Ms. Kane,
Here.
Mr. Dobbins,
Here.
Mr. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Larkin,
Here.
Mr. Nicholas, Mr. Shanks,
Here.
Mr. Turpin,
Here.
Ms. Williamson Branch. Here.
You got your mic on, we'll see.
Yeah, so to repeat that, Mr. Nicholas was in court today, and he's on his way, and will be here about 5:30, performing his business duties. First off, I wanted to go ahead and have an announcement here. I appreciate that we have many members, citizens of Danville, and I would expect also we have members of the press, and we also, I would expect to have folks who are utilities customers who may not actually be residents of the city. We are going to have a public comment period, hopefully commencing around 5:30 today after we conduct our business. And I want to remind you that we're going to operate this like we would a city council meeting, which provides each person from the public to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. However, if you do represent a group, in which case we will be very pleased to have you speak for a maximum of up to 10 minutes. When you do come up to speak, it's important that we actually have an opportunity to get your name and your address for the record. So what we would ask you to do is clearly to state both your name and address before you make your comments. Very good, sir. Are there other announcements that we need to make today?
No, sir.
All right. So I think the first order of business we have is the minutes of the January 22nd, 2018 commission meeting that's in our packet, beginning on page 3. If members of the commission would review that, please. Are there any corrections, deletions, or adjustments to the minutes from that meeting that should be noted? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. All in favor? By voice vote?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now I'm going to go ahead and review what the agenda is that we're going to go through today, just for to make sure that everybody is aware, and you should be able to see this on the monitors that are present in front of you. First off, we're going to review our December financial statements. And then the next order of the agenda is going to be the fiscal year 2019 utilities budget. This is the second review that the Commission will have had on the budget, and specifically we'll be following up on some action items and some questions that were posed last month. The next topic is going to be residential energy conservation best practices from a responsible business party called Nexent. And then item E is going to be a discussion of the utilities financial auditing processes. And then finally, item F will be discussion of the very high consumption rates that were seen in the January 2018 utility bills, and specifically we're going to be talking about predominantly electricity. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and start with a review of the December financial statements.
Good afternoon. Today we're...
Good afternoon, Ms. Chandler. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Super. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Today we will be reviewing the December statements, which completes the first 6 months or half of the 2018 fiscal year. The first fund, which is the wastewater fund, is on page 11 of your packet. The wastewater fund reports operating revenue of $4.8 million, which is just shy of the budget at 49% and shows a very slight decrease of $40,000 or less than 1% from last year. Operating expenses are within budgeted levels at 44%. Total operating expenses show a slight increase of 5% from last year, primarily in the distribution line related to manhole rehab work. With revenues coming in just shy of budget and expenses contained under budget, net income after transfers is reported at $1.2 million, which compares very favorably to the budget at 68% and comparable to the prior year, showing only a slight decrease of 11% or $162,000. The next fund is the water fund, which is on page 12. The water fund reports operating revenue of $4.1 million, which again is just shy of the budget at 49% and shows a slight decrease of 3% or $123,000 from last year. Operating expenses of $2.8 million are within budgeted levels at 44% and show an 8% increase from last year. This increase is primarily in transmission and treatment due to repairs to the clarifier at the industrial water treatment plant and additional expenses for chemical supplies. After including non-operating revenue and expenses, the water fund reports net income of $867,000. While this is a decrease of 26% compared to last year, it compares favorably to the budget at 81%. The next fund is the gas fund, which is on page 13. The gas fund finished the 6-month period with revenues of $9.3 million, reflecting a slight increase of 1.7% or $152,000 from last year. Year-to-date gas purchases were only at 40% of budget. Overall consumption remained consistent with the prior year, reflecting a slight increase of 2.5%. Total operating expenses also ran under budget, coming in at $2.4 million or 41% of budget. Operating expenses are very comparable to the prior year, reflecting only a 0.9% increase or $20,500. The fund reports a net loss after transfers of $604,000, which is a 20% decrease compared to prior year, primarily due to a decrease in non-operating revenue. This should rebound during the upcoming cold months as consumption will be higher, thus increasing revenues. The gas cost recovery was an under recovery of $413,000 at the end of December, which is comparable to historic amounts. We are still projected to be in a slight over recovery position by late spring, summer. The next fund is the electric fund, which is page 14. The electric fund reports operating revenues of nearly $65 million, which is right on target at 50% of budget, and reflects a 7% increase over the prior year. Purchase power costs were slightly above sales and budget at 51%. Overall, year-to-date kilowatt-hour consumption decreased by 3% compared to last year, spread among all customer classes. Total operating expenses of $9.2 million are slightly below the budget at 45%. Total operating expenses are up 16% compared to last year, primarily due to the tree trimming expenses of $1 million being moved from capital to operating. General and admin costs also increased primarily due to the addition of credit card charges and the Blue Ridge Power Agency membership dues. The fund reports a net loss after transfers of nearly $1.1 million, which compares favorably to the budgeted net loss of $2.7 million or 39%. The power cost recovery was a cumulative under recovery of $12.9 million at the end of December. The next fund, the telecommunications fund, is page 15. Telecom revenue of $660,000 was a little shy of budget at 44%. Purchase services were below budget at 24% and show a significant decrease of $73,000 compared to the prior year due to the renegotiated contract with Lumos. The general and admin expenses came in at 41% of budget, which is comparable to sales and show a 5% increase compared to last year, primarily related to depreciation. The fund reports net income of $135,000, which compares favorably to the budget at 52%. Are there any questions?
Hey,
Yes,
Warren.
sir.
On the electric, comparing this year with last year, looking at the gross profit number, comparing with last year, it's 13.5 this year, and last year was about 11. Had we already transferred the $2 million out of last year? Is that part of that difference? We transferred out of it.
It was, yes, it was $4 million, and it was in October of 2016.
You're referring to the
PC, yes, yeah. So that reflects that. So
It does.
if you put that back in there, we would still be just a little under last year. All right, about 500,000, I guess.
Quick question on the PCA recovery. How do we think our projected numbers may vary versus the plan that's on page 18?
Jason may have to step in, but I know we do have the January one, which he may talk about later.
We have power cost projections through our next budget year, but after that, it's a forecast. And granted, up until June of 19, it's a forecast as well, but we have a lot more certainty until June of 19, but after that, we don't.
So really, versus what we were talking last month, not a much different scenario are you expecting for the rest of the year?
No, the AEP's transmission rate increase was affected in January last month.
Right.
So that will be consistent throughout the calendar year of
And
this year.
built into our projection?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was my question.
Okay.
What about the buying that all-system gas in that cold period in January? You going to talk about that later? How much that's going to push it up?
I will.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Next item on the agenda, we have the fiscal year 2019 utilities budget. And that would be our capital budget.
We had a few very small changes in the operating budgets.
Yep.
In the wastewater fund, there was an addition of $4,350 for the IT technology support allocation. In the electric fund, we had an increase in a maintenance service contract of $8,750. The other three funds are unchanged in operations. In the capital budgets, in the electric fund, we previously proposed funding line rebuilds and reconductoring $2 million from fund balance, and we are now proposing that that be bonded. And in the telecommunications fund, the commission indicated last month that you do not wish to bond finance, so we reduced the project to $900,000 from the $1.5 million.
You did.
So those are the changes that we made since we last met.
There was one other item as we were looking forward on the capital, which was in the water balance that we did not actually bring up last month. But if we look at the fund balance projection on water, it's approaching $10 million. And is it potentially wise for us, as we're looking at some of the capital that we were going to consider bonding, to actually utilize our fund balance?
That's a decision for Commission and Council. We're projecting to use $2 million for fund balance for one project, but we are proposing to use $3 million from bonds for another project. That could be switched to fund balance, but that would be a total of $5 million taken away from the unrestricted fund balance of the water fund. So we would go from $10 million down to $5 million. which is above the cash reserve policy, well above the cash reserve policy.
5 million would you say that again, sir?
5 million would be above the city's cash reserve policy.
So currently, if we look at the plan right now, we have over 2x the reserve policy in water. And we have a substantial capital plan to rebuild the infrastructure that's absolutely necessary for our water plant, with some capital from a distribution perspective physically in the plant, which is that $2 million. And then would you refresh everyone's memory about the $3 million spend?
The $2 million is for the north side filter gallery of the water plant. In fiscal year 18, we budgeted $2 million to do the south gallery as part of the water plant. So that would be continuing on in that project. The $3 million is for the Dan River Reservoir, adapting that and upgrading it to where we could use it for a raw water impoundment to store approximately four days of raw water in case there's any events on the Dan River. We could supplement that or totally be sourced by the Dan River Reservoir. So that price tag is estimated to be $3 million.
Jason, I know the city has one policy about reserve level, and then the consultants recommended or considering they had another approach. So considering the consultant's approach, what would that number be in the water? Do you remember?
I'd have to go back and look at what the consultant's policy or formula was, but I believe our policy was stricter than the consultants, and even in the electric fund, AMPS. Our policy, our city policy is stricter than their policies. Michael can confirm. Okay.
So actually, what spurred me on about this was Mr. Dobbins' comments at the end of our last meeting regarding concerns over debt, and it appeared that there was an opportunity for us to avoid bonding in the water fund if the commission so wanted to recommend.
I recall our financial consultants when they did that rate study, and it was never really clear that sometimes you want to have more debt than necessarily dipping into your funds. And I can't remember what's going to be the tipping point on that, but because if we get so low in the restricted fund, it's going to trigger a rate increase because of the formula there.
Right.
So,
Well, I think the policy states that we have is required that we need roughly $2 million. And even with this change, we would still have $5 million. We would have over double what's needed to meet the city policy.
Yep, exactly. We certainly have over $5 million, it looks like. So it seemed like that might be a wiser use of that reserve at this time versus where we were in water, not too long ago. Sir.
Different topic. Are you ready?
Absolutely, sir.
On page 5, the contribution to the transfer to the general fund from electric is $10,021,000.
That's correct.
Is that level from last year?
It is.
As you may recall, Chairman, I've consistently had problems with the formula that's used to determine how much the contribution is. We've discussed it here and made recommendations to City Council that were adopted. And since then, some improvements have been made to that policy. But I would like for this utility commission one more time look at that later in the fall. Not at this time, but sometime during the next 6 or 8 months. In light of current rates, I just would like to have a discussion about that policy. My concern is, well, before it was most recently fixed, it was always gonna go up. It had the potential to always go up,
Correct.
never come back down. During times when our rates are a little out of whack, I would like to see that included as part of that formula. And I would like us to have that discussion if the chair will allow, at a later date.
Well, I
Sir,
recall,
Mr. Turpin?
I recall that even though the formula called for maybe a liable increase, that we also recommended or suggested that we not have any increase until we get our PCA down.
That's correct.
Is that in the policy?
No, that was just a suggestion, but I don't think we honored that the last time.
Yeah, this is not critical timing. I'm sorry, this is not critical timing because this is budget year. We're not increasing that number. But I would like to have that discussion before the next budget.
Would we want to put that into the discussion coincident with the rate study this fall? Or are you proposing that we have that discussion, say, next month?
I'm not suggesting next month, but if there's some wisdom to include it in the rate study, that's fine.
I think it would be coincident, and there's some advantages to that. The rate study, what's our schedule on that, Jason?
November, bring it to commission in November,
And completion would be
September, October.
September, October, so that would be well-timed with the budget?
As long as that discussion could take place and be included as part of that consultant recommendation.
I think it would be a perfect time to,
Okay.
good suggestion to do that.
All right.
And in the prior rate study, if you recall, we looked at other municipal utilities and, you know, the contribution in lieu of actually a payment of income tax. So renewing that analysis, I think, would be very beneficial right now as well.
Yeah, I think there's something additional in my mind is as we know and we all admit and acknowledge, we are a little above where we should be on the rate.
Well, of course we are.
And I mean, it's $15, but until something like that can be fixed, I don't see that contribution being allowed to be increased to a general fund. Thank you.
So I don't think we need a motion to assure that that is included in the rate study analysis, do we?
No, staff will prepare that accordingly.
And then, of course, we want to make sure that City Council is fully prepped on this. How would we go about that?
Well, the last two times it's come through the Utility Commission recommendation and staff, and I think that would be appropriate.
That'll
again.
suffice?
Yeah.
And I would assume you would carry, as the City Council member on the commission, you would perhaps provide a voice for us as well?
I would.
Okay. Very good, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. So I guess we're back to the budget. Of course, that was a budget item, just clarifying.
It was
It's a bit,
expanded.
bit of a left turn, but that's okay. So, any other observations and concerns about the budget that's moving forward? I mean, as we noted last month, this was an extremely well-prepared budget. You know, certainly no one here, absolutely no one here has any pleasure in the rates that we're having to charge our customers in the electric area, but it is what it is at this point in time. But we do know that the budget was prepared judiciously. It was prepared bottoms up. It has the appropriate focus on cost, and I believe we'll be reviewing some of that later with some of the materials that Mr. Gray will be presenting. So are we at a point to make a recommendation to move the budget forward? The one thing I would like to consider including at this point in time is the change in the investments for the water plant. Is that appropriate at this point in time, or can we handle that at another time?
The motion could be made with the emphasis that the Dana River Reservoir be funded with fund balance.
Could the attorney provide us appropriate modification of language for the motion then? So right now, the original motion is that one of our commission members would need to make is, I move that the Danville Utility Commission approve the updated version of the Utility Department's proposed fiscal year 2019 budget for submission to the city manager and an inclusion in his budget proposal to city council with the commission's recommendation for its adoption by the council. And then there was also a further statement that I further move that staff make the budget expenditure adjustments necessary to bring the budgets back into balance and brief the commission on actions taken at the April 23rd meeting should ongoing evaluations reveal revenue shortfalls.
You're making the request that the recommendation to City Council include the funding of reservoir updates out of the general fund as opposed to
The water fund balance.
Out of the water fund balance versus bonds.
So could he make a motion saying budget approved as amended?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a big mouthful over there, but somebody's got to make that motion. And what we would do is, in the second line where it says fiscal year 2019 budget, we would include as amended.
All right, I'll make it. I move that the Danville Utility Commission approve the updated version of the Utility Department's proposed fiscal year 2019 budget as amended for submission to the city manager and inclusion in his budget proposal to the city council with the commission's recommendation for its adoption by the council. I further move that the staff make the budget expenditure adjustments necessary to bring the budget back into balance and brief the commission on actions taken at the April 23rd meeting should an ongoing evaluations reveal revenue shortfalls.
So we have a motion to proceed with the utilities budget with a recommendation as amended. Is there any discussion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Could we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Yes.
Ms. Holly?
Ms. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Dobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Larkin?
Yes.
Mr. Turpin?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson Branch?
The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Again, I would like to commend the department on preparing the budget. It is the best budget that I have seen since my association with the Utilities Commission, going back a long ways. Thank you. Thank you. Very well done. All right. Next item we have on the agenda is Nexent to present on the residential energy conservation best practices.
I'd like to introduce Joshua Bieber from Nexent.
Hi, Joshua. How are you?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Good. So where do you hail from?
So I work in Cary, North Carolina.
Oh, beautiful place.
And I've been, I'll get into it in a little bit in the presentation, but I've been working with Danville and Nexent as a program administrator since 2013. First, I want to thank Jason for the introduction, and thank you all for your time. We're going to do a brief presentation on the best practices for residential energy conservation. We're going to start off with a brief summary of Nexent's experience in utility services, specifically in regards to residential. Going to go into the recommendations for maximizing energy conservation, specifically in the residential field, and we'll close with some question and answers for any topics that anyone would like additional information on. As you can see here, Nexent has a very wide range of experience in the utility services field. Specifically in the program management sector, we have several different utilities similar to Danville Utilities that we run residential and commercial rebate energy efficiency programs for. On a personal note, as I said, I've been working with Nexent and Danville Utilities as a program administrator since 2013. I specialize in residential and commercial energy efficiency programs, and we're going to go into a little bit of kind of the basis for it and also the specific measures that can help customers. So before we get into the actual energy efficiency tips, we're going to break down a little bit how peak temperatures can affect peak demand and how that affects cost. Now, the obvious cost is with hot summers and cold winters, you're going to see your energy bill increase because your heating system and your water heating is having to work a little bit harder. However, the longer term costs actually have to do with the peak demand. Now, what is peak demand? A brief synopsis of peak demand is the highest energy load exhibited across all of Danville Utilities at any one time. Now, a peak demand event has specific cost paybacks that have to be made over the following year. And that is where most of the long-term cost impacts are. As such, the measures that we're going to be recommending and displaying here both focus on the monthly bills, how you can reduce those, as well as the long-term impact of reducing peak demand across all of Danville Utilities. Now, existing programmable thermostats and optimizing them should always be the first step when approaching a residential home and creating energy efficiency there. Energy Star has a recommended set point list here that you can see that makes the home comfortable when it's occupied and doesn't waste energy when it's unoccupied. Now, if a home does not have a programmable thermostat, the Danville Home Save Rebate Program offers a $75 rebate for smart thermostats, which can make an immediate impact in home energy use. The next best place to start when looking for energy...
So can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
You don't mind, do you? Mm-hmm. So if I'm a homeowner, then I'm in a position to be able to apply for a rebate if I was to purchase one of these, two of these?
Correct. The limit per customer is 2 smart programmable thermostats per home, replacing a manual.
Two per customer?
Correct.
Okay. Now what if I'm in the rental business and I'm looking at trying to provide this type of an instrument for use by my renters in a rental unit? How does that apply?
Absolutely. So if you are the owner of the rental location, then you would be the one applying for it for the actual rebate, since that address would be attributed to your account. The most important aspect for that rebate is that it's permanently installed. So for instance, if someone was going to be using a thermostat and then taking it with them, it would reduce the lifetime savings that we estimate for it.
Okay, so just to kind of drill in here a little bit more. So if I'm an individual and I've got an apartment building that has 4 units in it.
Sorry, say the first part.
I'm an owner of an apartment building and I have 4 units in that apartment building. How many, in each of those, say is a couple bedroom unit. How many of these thermostats could I purchase under this program for that particular address?
To be honest, I would have to go back through the program documents to make sure that the eligibility requirements are specified. I believe they are for single family homes.
Right. If they're separately metered, it would be for individual.
Mm-hmm. So if they're separately metered, that would allow for 4 individual.
Correct.
Okay, so there's nothing barring an owner of rental properties from doing this.
Correct. As long as they are the owner and follow the proper eligibility requirements per the program.
Even though they're not paying the bill, okay, because the bill is being paid for potentially by the rentor, but they have the ability to tap into this rebate program and be able to source this type of energy-saving device as part of the hardware in their apartment.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I just didn't know how that worked. Sir?
Yes, I changed over to 2 programmable thermostats several years ago, and they made a tremendous difference. Can you explain to me the difference between a smart?
Smart programmable thermostat?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the way that we define a smart programmable thermostat for our rebate program is something that is either self-learning, has occupancy sensor, and or has Wi-Fi. So when we talk about self-learning, basically what that means is it's capable of programming itself. So it learns either through occupancy sensing or through the manual interactions with the customer how best to optimize its own system. So again, here we're talking about how a user in a regular programmable thermostat could optimize their system by setting these set points as laid out by Energy Star. The benefit of a smart programmable thermostat is that things like the Nest or the ecobee is capable of optimizing itself using its program.
Will there be any communication beyond inside the home?
Excuse me for a moment. I forgot at the beginning of the meeting, if you have a cell phone, turn it off, okay? Please. It's very hard for us to hear over that cell phone ringing our folks. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. If you need to make a call, just go out into the hallway, please. Thank you. Go back, sir.
So,
Could you repeat that?
yeah, the question was, well, let's see. I seem to have lost it. Is there any communication with that thermostat beyond the outside of the building, of the dwelling?
Because it is a Wi-Fi enabled for smart thermostats.
That's why I'm
they are
asking.
Wi-Fi. They are capable. So, for instance, some models you're capable of programming it from your phone. You can go onto a website, or many other means of doing that.
Is there any communication between the meter, the programmable thermostat, and the city utility department?
Not as a part of the HomeSafe program.
If there was any communication, the owner would know.
I can't speak to that, to be honest.
There's no communication between our meter and any appliance inside the home.
All right, my last question is if the owner wanted to allow the city to turn the thermostat down in a peak demand period for a benefit provided by the utility, is that possible?
I'll have to defer to Jason.
Absolutely. Part of this program was to get these smart thermostats deployed and people using them. I'll use Nest as an example. They're not the only ones, though, but they have a program where you can have people sign up for a demand load side management program, and if they sign up, you can alter their temperature settings during peak periods.
The Danville utility could,
Yes, through the
with
Nest,
the agreement with the customer.
with the agreement the customer has with the Nest provider, that Danville Utilities will have an agreement with Nest.
Is
So
that where we're going?
That's where we're trying to head. We see a lot of customers interested in the Nest thermostats because it gives them a lot of statistical data. They can see how much they're heating and cooling every day, and see when they're using energy more.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there are people, if given a benefit, they would sign up for that program. I certainly
Yeah,
would.
that's where we're going. We're still a couple of years, I would say, away before at least a year.
It really helps us in peak demand management.
Right.
And I would assume that would obviously be done with a customer opting in given the opportunity. And some type of recognition typically is done for them participating in the
Right.
program. Okay.
Did we have any other questions on this slide?
Keep going.
Thank you. As I said, the next best step when looking at a home's energy efficiency is insulation, specifically the attic insulation. Attic insulation can help reduce the energy that's lost, both heating and cooling, through the ceiling, and it works best when paired with air sealing of the home to reduce air leakage. and when using the proper type of insulation based on the accessibility of the location, the cost requirements, and the insulation that you need added. Similar to the smart programmable thermostats, attic insulation is eligible under certain circumstances for rebate. Current building code for residential in Virginia requires R38 or greater for homes. So if a home does not have at least R38, that should definitely be one of the first priorities when improving the home's efficiency. And you can see here how improving the R value above code will continue to improve your energy savings over the course of a year. Heating, sorry?
Just for everybody's information, can you give us an idea of the depth of the attic insulation you would need to get above R38?
That is actually one of the aspects that you look into when looking at the types of insulation, because different types, for instance, blown-in fiberglass, the pink rolls, and things like foam, each one has a unique R value per depth. So if you are, for instance, limited by the amount of space, you may have to put in a specific kind of foam, which may be more expensive, but the density helps with that R value. So it's going to vary from type to type. For blown-in fiberglass, it really depends also on the age of the existing R that's in there, because sometimes over time, fiberglass will compress. So a contractor, whenever they come out, would be able to give the best kind of estimate for the R value needed, and then provide a depth that they would need to add to your specific attic.
Did you get your answer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have just
Yes, sir.
anecdotal comment regarding these set points that we found at home. My children don't always like this, but we have those set points significantly lower than what's suggested here.
Me too.
And that takes these benefits and multiplies them dramatically.
Yeah.
I'm talking about as long as we're not in a sustained sub-freezing environment, we set them back to the low to mid 50s in the winter, and
I thought I was bad. Low to mid 50s.
anyway,
it
helps.
I hope one of my kids might be listening to this, because they thought 61 was pretty cold.
Don't let them talk to mine.
Wow.
Thank you.
You're tough.
Is that with somebody in the house?
That's pretty cold.
Okay.
So continuing on, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, commonly referred to as HVAC, is the highest source of energy in the average home. As such, prioritizing that for energy efficiency is going to have the greatest impact. When considering upgrading your unit, there are a couple ideas that you need to keep in mind. First off, the older a unit is, the less efficient it's going to produce. Second, making sure that your unit is properly sized is actually one of the most important aspects of installation, because an improperly sized unit can draw extra power and potentially fail early. Also, replacing electric strip heating with gas heating is an excellent way to reduce your winter utility bills. And finally, as mentioned previously, there are several different kinds of rebates available in the Danville Home Safe program for high efficiency units, which really help to reduce the additional cost associated with those higher efficiencies. On this slide, you can see what impact the seasonal energy effectiveness ratio, or SEER, can have on your annual cooling, and also your heating savings power factor on a heat pump can have in your heating savings over the course of a year. Water heaters are the second highest source of energy usage in the home, and one of the easiest ways to reduce your energy usage there is by reducing the set point of the hot water coming out. After that, the option of switching from electric to gas and ensuring that the type of water heater you're using is matched up to the hot water usage of the home are two great ways to improve your water heating energy savings. Here you can see that tankless gas water heaters are good for homes that have less and infrequent use of hot water, whereas storage tank water heaters are best for homes that tend to use more hot water more frequently throughout the day. Once you've chosen the right kind of water heater, it's also important to make sure that you choose a high-efficiency model. As you can see here, improving the efficiency of the gas water heater can save quite a bit of money over the course of a year, and that's every single month as well. Once you've prioritized the largest energy efficiency measures in a home, there are several ways that you can continue to improve the savings. One of the easiest is by replacing incandescent bulbs with LED bulbs, and the costs and paybacks of those has improved so much that oftentimes they'll pay for themselves within a single year. Also, participating in the Danville Home Safe program through HVAC system tune-ups, installing high-efficiency windows, and improving the insulation in places like your walls, floors, and crawl space are also great ways to continue the energy savings. And all of these are available for rebates for eligible customers.
So when you talk about insulating walls, you know, many of the structures in the city were built architecturally by a gentleman by the name of J. Bryant Hurd, who was extremely afraid of fire. And unfortunately, that's a real challenge in those structures because they're solid stone, solid brick. There's no way to insulate the walls. So we have some challenges in some of the nicer properties in this city where that is a very, very large undertaking because of the need to build out the interior of the home to do this.
Absolutely, and actually some of the participation we've seen has utilized all three at the same time. So it's usually
Really?
kind of a group effort where they're not only improving the wall, but they're also improving the floor and crawl space. Because similar to what you said, oftentimes it's going to be a little more costly to just do one. So if you do all of them at the same time, oftentimes contractors can do it more cost effectively.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh.
Absolutely. On this slide are several tips that are either low or no cost to reduce energy usage. The first reduces your hot water usage by reducing the water used. The second reduces the amount of heat lost in that hot water. The next two can reduce your air sealing issues, which again is the lost heating and cooling air, meaning you don't have to make up that. And finally, you can reduce your energy usage by removing unnecessary energy loads in your home. Finally, we wanted to cover a few,
One quick question, just to clarify. You stated a few minutes ago that these rebates are for eligible customers.
Mm-hmm.
That would be any customer in the city or the county service area, is that correct?
Correct.
That's any Danville utility residential. They have to.
Now, would this also apply to rental properties as well?
Mm-hmm.
The insulation and things like, I know that some of it did, everything does, the home safe program?
Right.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Absolutely. Finally, we want to end with discussing some of the myths and misconceptions that can actually increase the energy use in an average home. First off, manually changing the temperature in a home past the actual desired temperature can have an adverse reaction to energy usage, sometimes causing the emergency heat and heat pump to go on, which is a drastic energy user. Also, closing vents in unused rooms or using space heaters in specific rooms may seem like a good way of reducing your HVAC energy usage, but actually creates larger loads in the long run. Finally, using wood and pellet heating can reduce gas and electric heating, but can potentially create air leakage issues and potential health hazards if they're not used properly.
Right.
Again, I want to thank you all for your time. Oh, yeah.
Question back on programmable thermostats and raising the temperature, like you said. It's my understanding on a heat pump, if you raise that temperature setting more than maybe 2 degrees at a time, it causes that auxiliary heat to come on. And in my case, I think it's about 1 degree. So I always raise mine up gradually. Does a programmable thermostat do the same thing?
Yes, and oftentimes a heat pump will have specific programmable thermostats that work well with them to avoid those kinds of instances. So that is something to keep in mind whenever for instance, if you don't have a programmable thermostat and you're looking for one, you want to make sure that it's one that, if you have a heat pump, will work well with that to avoid the emergency heat being used.
In my particular case, I was bragging about programmable thermostats, but in my case, in my office, whenever the time change occurred, it would hit auxiliary heat. So apparently there's some thermostats that don't slowly bring it up. And the other thing I noticed was the office is cut down to 60 degrees every night. Well, it's an old building and it gets cooler than 60 degrees, so that auxiliary heat was running all night long. I had no idea. Wow.
That sucks.
One last question, and this is kind of personal, but I guess it applies to a lot of people. In the house, we go down to 60 degrees at night, but it is also an old house, and during the coldest spell, we were unable to catch up to the daytime setting. Now, in a situation where it's that cold, should you avoid going down that? I mean, I guess it'd be cheaper to have it set at a higher temperature than fight it to catch up all the next day. Does that make sense as a mechanical engineer?
To be honest, I would probably need to have a few more details about just like the home envelope, what kind of air sealing and insulation.
Yeah, okay. I was just trying to get a ballpark idea, but it looked like that makes sense to go down like the Dobbins do, go down to 50, 60 degrees at night, but during this coldest spell, the system wouldn't catch up.
Yeah, we don't try that one. It's at 20 degrees sustained.
Yeah.
But most of the winter we can do what I described.
Did we have any other questions or topics that anyone would like more information on?
I really appreciate you briefing the commission as well as the guests who are here today. Thank you, Josh.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so how do people get a hold of this program?
So the best way to find information about the Danville Home Safe program is through the website, and I'm sure Jason has additional.
DanvilleHomeSave.com.
Okay. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda, and obviously members of the commission were pretty aware of some of the comments that were made through social media, et cetera, regarding the utility and the aspects of auditing the utilities books. So we had an opportunity to bring in some expertise to talk specifically about what the city of Danville does from an auditing perspective. Mr. Gray, would you go ahead and introduce our guest, please?
Mr. Norman Yoder with Brown and Edwards. He's been doing the city's audit for a number of years and very experienced and very knowledgeable about the financial systems that we have here at the city of Danville.
And actually, before we get going, I noticed there's some folks who might want a seat. Well, generally, like a church, there's seats up in front. So you're more than welcome to please have a seat.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Yoder.
So I've not read these comments that you mentioned, and I didn't prepare a PowerPoint presentation. Perhaps I should have.
No.
So I came not completely sure what you're looking for, but I will do my best to give you what I think you might need or might be helpful. Maybe I'll just give a brief overview of how the audit works. A couple of you in here have heard that before and know a bit about it. Some of this is maybe new to a couple of you.
You might want to introduce your firm.
Yeah, I thought I'd start with
a little bit of
that.
background. We have some reading materials here for the folks in the audience don't have that
Sure.
benefit. If you wouldn't mind, sir.
So I'm a partner with Brown Edwards, and my office is in Lynchburg, but I work throughout our firm. And we have 9 offices, mostly in Virginia and in Tennessee, and West Virginia, and then 1 office in Tennessee. We have a large municipal practice. That means we audit a lot of cities, quite a few counties, and then a lot of other quasi-governmental entities, including some standalone utilities and so forth. And there's several of us partners who are active in that practice, and I'm one of those. So the city's been a client for several years. I think 2014 might have been the first year that we did the city's audit. And the audit is something the city undergoes every year. And June 30 is the city's year end, and so our audit is focused on June 30 numbers, and the year ended June 30. These are the numbers that become part of the city's comprehensive annual financial report that at least council gets, and some others at the end of the year. Within the city's audit are enterprise funds, is what we call them. And there are 4 major ones here at the city of Danville: wastewater and water and gas and electric. And there's a few others that are considered non-major funds. Okay. And to those of us who do audits, major funds, that term has a special meaning. A fund is major in that it gets sort of standalone treatment in the audit process. So, for example, the electric fund gets different treatment than if it were just part of the non-major funds. So we look at its revenues and expenses and assets and liabilities in designing procedures that are aimed at the electric fund. Same be true for gas and so forth. The purpose of the audit, that's important. The audit is directed to this purpose, us expressing an opinion as to whether the numbers that are in that annual report are fairly presented. Doesn't mean that there might not be immaterial errors, but it means that we've done work sufficient to support our opinion that there aren't material misstatements, whether errors or intentional. And we've expressed a clean opinion for those years that we've done the city's audit, including each of those major funds.
Could you explain to me what that statement means, sir?
A clean opinion.
Clean
okay?
opinion, please.
So, a clean opinion means that we believe there are no material misstatements. An opinion that is not clean could say there is a material misstatement, and here's what it is. That could be one. Another qualified opinion might be that we were able to audit, all of these aspects of, say, the gas fund except for inventory. And so we have a scope exception. And that's not the case. I'm just giving that as an example. Another one that you rarely encounter, but in theory is possible, is where we would say we just express an adverse opinion on the entire fund. state we don't think it's right, we're not putting any opinion on it at all. Or we would disclaim. All of those, that's another step where we can say we just don't have enough evidence, we couldn't get enough evidence from management to complete our audit, and so we don't express an opinion at all. All of those are pretty bad outcomes for an audit. But a clean opinion means that without any qualification, we think the statements are fairly presented. I thought I'd talk just a little bit about our process and try to make it sort of layman's terms. And I won't cover every aspect of an audit, but we look at the critical elements of the financial statements: revenues, expenses, assets, liabilities, and perform different tests on each of those areas. We never test every transaction. No auditor can do that. But we use judgment about risk, where we think misstatements could occur. We use statistical samples. These are all commonly accepted audit procedures. For revenue, we would look at things such as changes in rates. We look at your actions here. We look at changes in usage, and we see how that flows into the revenue numbers at the end of the year. And do they make sense? Do they not? Certain expenses, like for example in the electric fund, we are able to confirm with AMP all of the power purchases. And we do that. We correspond with them. They respond to us. We tie those numbers out. Depreciation is another large expense, and we're able to tie that to underlying depreciation schedules. I looked at the electric fund before I came, and we applied direct tests like those confirmations and tying out depreciation to over 91% of operating expenses in the electric fund, which is very high coverage, unusually high coverage maybe. And then just real quickly, we look at internal controls. We may or may not, the extent of our tests there vary depending on the availability of other evidence. But we look at controls, and an internal control, think about it this way, it is like a series of processes. It's like a machine or a box where if you put a transaction in on this side, it's processed and comes out the other side, is posted to the books, and is handled correctly each time. And we look at the controls over how payments from your customers are posted. We walk through a few of those. We look at outflows, payments that the city makes to vendors or to suppliers. We look at a sample of credit card transactions. We're always interested in what's going on with purchase cards. We look at payroll and how that process works. We look at overtime pay, compare it to what's the level of overtime look like compared to prior years and so forth. Look for aberrations there. We look at capital asset expenditures. We do come at year end and count your inventories if they're sizable. Go out and take sample counts, tie those into the ending balances. We confirm cash with the bank. We confirm a sample of customer receivable accounts at the end of the year. We look at accounts payable. We do some special testing for the VRS, the state auditor of public accounts. They have the right to look at our work, and they direct some things that we must do to satisfy them. So we look at some procurement, we look at some contracts, and so forth. So an audit starts in May and wraps up in late November, and it involves a lot of people, and I certainly don't do all this work. But that is sort of an overview at a high level. We have not found, at least in recent years, and let me slow down and say this. Sometimes as part of a good, healthy audit, we'll find something that should be adjusted, and there will be an adjustment that comes out of it. That's okay. That's not rare. But I think in the last year or two, we've not had any significant adjustments in the utilities area, which means that throughout the year, as you're looking at unaudited numbers, you're probably seeing numbers that are pretty good. Is one takeaway that I take from that. I didn't mention the PCA, but we test that. One of the spreadsheets that was in your handout today, we actually look at a spreadsheet very much like that, and I went back and looked, and it agreed to the one we were auditing from last June. And we look at the components of that, the additional pieces of the rate components that are meant to deal with the power charges. We compare the power charges to those actually paid to AMP, and we walk our way across that spreadsheet and test it and get comfortable with it. So that's a brief overview, and I don't know if that's going down the lines that you wanted me to or not, but I'm glad to try to answer questions. Yes, sir.
You guys always kind of covered yourselves, but, and I understand that. That's the
Sure.
But I'll take away from what you just said is that your firm has audited Danville Utilities, Danville Power and Light in particular, the last 3 years, and they've come with a clean report.
Yeah.
And that report is based on information that you have gathered from May until November of each of those years. And through that process, you have not found any failure to communicate proper information.
That's correct. I don't have a problem with how you put that. Let me clarify one thing. We're in the field from May to November, but the evidence we're looking at is throughout the fiscal year we're testing. I don't want someone to think that we leave some months out or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I just meant the effort takes place.
Right. He's right. The auditors are always very careful what they say up here. And part of that is because the audit is built to do one specific thing. And I have evidence that I can point to that supports our opinion. When I start veering from that, I could start saying things that I don't have evidence to directly support. But anecdotally, we've had a good relationship with these people, both at the city and at utilities, and I feel like our sense is that they have been forthcoming, that they have, whenever we've asked for a document or asked to talk to somebody like AMP, even, that's always been made available to us, which is important. What else?
So would you say that your conversations going through your normal course of business, the city has been transparent where it's been required?
That's been my experience, and my staff would say that too.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Mr. Yoder, I do appreciate you taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy time of year for your business to come up here and give us an overview of the process and your perspective on the health of the financial process executed by the city of Danville for its utilities business.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me. And I'll say one other thing, if I could, that
Please do.
If you have more questions later, I can respond even by email to yourself or something, if that's helpful, or to others here. And if at some point you feel like there would be some special procedures that you think would be helpful, there's times where we design those, and glad to talk about that. So whatever way we can be of help to you and the city, we want to be. So.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you all.
Jason, is there anything barring people from these front pews? So folks who I see have just stepped in, we actually do have space on the very first pew or bench here in the City Council. Please feel free to sit there. We appreciate you all coming tonight. The last item that we have on the agenda before the public comment period is a review by the Utilities Director on the high consumption that occurred in the December and January timeframe, specifically referring to the billing cycle that arrived with people in the middle of January. Sir? Thank you.
Thank you. Before I get into the PowerPoint, I just want to make a few comments, mainly for the public. Danville Utilities has been in the electric business since 1886. We've been providing services to this community for over 130 years, and we've been in the gas business for even longer, but we're also in the public service business, which is a distinct difference from an investor-owned utility or a co-op. We are public servants to our customers. So we want to be partners to them and be able to serve them when there's questions about high bills. We have a great customer service staff that can answer questions. We have a key accounts manager, and anybody's welcome to come visit me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. But we are here to serve our customers and answer any questions, and I hope my presentation is very informative to everyone here attending and at home. January was cold. I don't need to kind of belabor that, but the first week of January was one of the longest stretches of cold temperatures that this community has seen in a very long time, if ever. The PowerPoint slide shows that temperatures were consistently below 15 degrees.
Might want to hold for a minute while we have some folks filing in. We're getting close to 5:30, so
Sure.
It's probably going to continue.
Okay. As this graph shows that the temperatures were consistently below 15 degrees for over a 7-day period. Out of 168 possible hours, 143 were 15 degrees or below, which means heating equipment ran longer, ran harder to maintain temperatures in homes. Prices of electricity, which I'll show further, rose because of the high demand of electricity.
So when you say prices of electricity, sir, are you referring to the utility customer, or are you referring to, could you explain what you mean by prices?
Prices of energy, megawatt hours, kilowatt hours that we have to buy off the market for anything above what we have resources for rose to historic numbers. And I'll show more about that. I'm kind of jumping ahead in my presentation. But I wanted to show this graph here as an indication that, like, for example, January 2nd, the high temperature was 9 degrees and the low temperature was -3. January 5th was a big day as far as electric usage. The high temperature was 11 degrees and the low temperature was 2 degrees. And these are Danville temperatures. These are not regional. These are Danville, Virginia numbers. So what led to high consumption? We saw a 40% increase in load, or kilowatt hour consumption, from the first week of January compared to last year. That's dramatic for any utility to have to go through. Our neighboring utilities also experience high consumption. Appalachian Power, a lot of the cooperatives that are neighboring to our east also had high consumption and are experiencing the same remnants of these cold temperatures in January. But some of the causes are electric heat pumps. The auxiliary heat has to run longer and harder during those times, and the heating strips take up more energy or consume more energy in order to take in cold air and put out heat that you require, that your thermostat set at. So we did address some customer issues. We found some customers' heat pumps were malfunctioning. We saw some were always heating on emergency heat. We went out and checked our meters. We haven't found any meters that we visited that were inaccurate or malfunctioning. So that's reassuring for us to
So
hear.
when you talk about an auxiliary heat system and a heat pump, what are you really referring to?
Repeat that. I didn't hear.
When you talk about an auxiliary system and a heat pump, well, what are you referring to?
So when the temperature drops really below 32 degrees, emergency heat or auxiliary heat, there are heat strips in a heat pump that have to provide that extra energy, or the coils have to heat up in order to provide that heating source in order to provide the heat to your home. Some customers heat with backup natural gas, and that's a very economical
Very
solution.
efficient, right.
Propane is another option that some of our county customers have, because we don't have natural gas into Pittsylvania County and Henry and Halifax County. That's also a very good solution. Any kind of a fuel like that is a good backup solution when the temperatures drop consistently below a certain degree, like they did the first week of January. Another reason for high consumption was poorly insulated homes. The chairman made a comment earlier. A lot of homes in Danville lack good insulation. They don't have insulation between the walls, crawl space, or ceilings. So that's something that we want our customers to take advantage of through our Home Save program. That's what the program's there for, is for customers to get these projects done, or at least planned out, and apply for rebates. We want to encourage you to go out and see what your home needs to make it more efficient. You'll see immediately the difference in your energy bills or your utility bills by staggering these projects, doing a couple a year, whatever is most economical for you and your family. And the last common cause, we saw a lot of customers using space heating, and that's very inefficient as well. Space heating is good for a small square footage, maybe a single room, but to heat an entire house, it's very inefficient and uneconomical. I know one customer, they heated one part of their house, and the rest of their house they had water pipe issues because they didn't heat the other part of the house. So very sympathetic to hearing the issues that one customer had. But space heating is not a long-term solution. It's more for very small areas of your home, square footage areas, maybe a single room or even part of a room, but it's not a solution. It's certainly not a long-term solution, but it's good for maybe a single room.
Jason, on that topic, you see a lot of advertisement about this infrared and so forth. Does that make any difference so the public might know that?
I don't think so. I think it's equivalent to any other kind of space heating. It's good for maybe a 20 square foot area, but it's not going to heat more than a small room.
So you know, Jason, a lot of the homes that we have in our city are not owner occupied. They're rented.
Mm-hmm.
What incentive is there for the for the owner of that property to insulate the home?
Well, I mean, I think they can market their utility bills. They can show that their utility bills are possibly lower than other areas in the city. I would certainly, if I was a renter, look at insulation. I would climb in the crawl space or in the attic to see what the possible insulation looks like, and inquire about past utility bills. Any customer is looking to move into a home can call our office, our customer service office, and inquire about what the approximate bills are for a particular home.
Oh, so even if that bill, which is being paid for by the rentor, you can still give them an approximate cost for that particular unit and that piece of property.
That's correct, because we don't know if it's going to be rented or purchased. If it's going to be purchased, they're likely going to have to pay a deposit, and that deposit is going to be equivalent to 2 months worth of average utility bill. So we're willing to help in any way we can to help explain what those costs are. Granted, our bill does have more charges on it than any other co-ops. We bill for water, wastewater, gas service, and sometimes in some areas telecom service. So
I know that's a challenge too, because when we converse with some of our friends who live in the county, when they talk about paying a power bill, they're talking about paying a power bill to Appalachian. They're not talking about paying an all-in bill, which is what we pay in the city.
Right. And
which includes water, wastewater, garbage, in our case, a telecom fee, because we utilize the
broadband network,
and of course, natural gas and electric.
I actually have a couple slides indicating what a electric-only customer, so I'll show those here in just a few minutes.
Okay, good.
But just to recap the January high consumption, we did experience unusually high cost for energy. We have resources allocated for normal day expectations as far as normal load, but anything above that, we are subject to the market conditions. And really, January 5th, prices got well over $300 a megawatt hour, and this is we're basically subject to whatever market conditions are available. So we can make hedges in the future. We can purchase long, but certain gas plants couldn't get gas. Coal plants couldn't operate because they had mechanical issues. So that led to extremely high prices and what they call congestion on the transmission system that led to high prices.
Now, we really, at this point in time, we have no control of that at all.
We don't. We own generation, but we don't own transmission. We don't control the grid. We're trying to have more of a say-so in those decisions by getting a seat at the table where decisions are made. So by our membership with American Municipal Power, or AMP, we're able to have a seat at that table and have a voice on some of the rate increases with transmission to make sure they're in our best interest and make sure we can avoid some of these issues that we've seen in January of 2018 and January of 2014 when we had the polar vortex. So
we hope that would never happen again, and unfortunately it did.
That's correct. I'm not going to jump ahead in my presentation. So I mentioned a bill comparison from an electric-only customer compared to a city customer that has all services. This is an electric-only customer. This is their 2-year history. This customer used about 3,000, almost 2,900 kilowatt hours in January of this year, and that's the highest amount of consumption that they've experienced in 2 years. The second highest was in February of 2016 when we had another cold spell. So this bill was well over $400, and was for only electric, no other services, no refuge, no garbage pickup, no gas, no water, just electric only.
My God.
The next slide is a chart showing a city customer that has gas service, but they also have electric, water, wastewater, and trash pickup refuge. And their all-in bill was $320. So this is a customer that had electric heating but gas backup, and they saved roughly $90 with additional services. So that's a tremendous savings. So I encourage customers to, if they're looking at or getting to the end of life with their current heating situation, if they're electric only, to look at possibly buying an electric heating system with a gas backup, whether it's natural gas or propane, depending on your location. It certainly could save you in the long run.
I mean, because heat pumps are a great option for cooling.
They are, but
I mean, they're really hard to beat. But unfortunately, even when you get to below 40 degrees, they start to get really squeaky on.
And that's the risk that you take when you buy electric only for heating sources.
But again, the ability to do a compound unit where you have a backup unit, which is natural gas, is becoming increasingly common. It's built right into the unit.
Right.
Matter of fact, my neighbor put one in just this last year, and it really has done a great job for keeping their bills down.
So a heat pump usually costs, I would estimate $4,000 or $5,000 to have installed. A natural gas furnace with a primary electric would cost between $7,000 and $8,000, but you make up that difference immediately within probably 5 years or less with the savings.
Right.
So I wanted to describe the differences between our power supply cost and our distribution costs. And distribution costs are what we pay for salaries for our linemen, our meter staff, our substation staff, and all the backhaul staff, as well as transformers, wires, and poles. So as you can see by the red line, our distribution costs have been very flat over the years, around $26, $27 million every year. And that includes our transfers out of the fund as well as our allocations. So we've been able to absorb any increases and offset any kind of rate increases that we've had over the past few years. But our power supply costs have increased since 2016, mainly due to two reasons. AEP's transmission rates have increased tremendously over the past 2 years.
What percentage increases have we seen from AEP over the last 2 years?
Roughly 30%, starting at the beginning of 2017, and another 30% at the beginning of January of this year. We were not notified of the increase of this year until November of 2017, so we didn't have a lot of time to factor in the changes, and that cost increase had to be absorbed and passed through our power cost adjustment.
What appeal process do we have, if any, to try to counter that type of an increase from that public utility?
We can petition the FERC to ask them to review projects that are submitted for completion, to have them reviewed more heavily to make sure they're in our best interest. We can talk to our state legislators or federal representatives to help for assistance in helping these projects be curtailed over a longer period of time. Granted, some of the infrastructure required is out of date. I know there's some transmission lines in AEP's territory that is 80, 100 years old, but to have this drastic of an increase is given our customers rate shock. And we have to pass it through because we have no way out.
Are they now this is a carry forward bill, is it not? So they're billing us for transmission that will be built or will be upgraded.
It will be upgraded. It's currently, they have certain projects that they label as different priorities. So they have a plan, I think it's either a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan that they have, and it identified different areas that they want to attack to make improvements with.
And have they passed that type of cost increase on to their own customers?
They have, but they have reduced their fuel costs. So AEP is also a generation provider, so they're able to keep their rates flat. So they've increased transmission costs, but they've reduced in other areas. But these costs are also passed on to other municipals other than Danville.
Sure.
Co-ops are also seeing the effects of transmission increases. And I have a slide later on in the presentation that shows the increases that we've seen in transmission costs over the past 10 years, and it's quite substantial.
Thank you.
So we acknowledge that our rates are above market currently, and we're exploring every opportunity to make any improvement whatsoever. We participate in several different realignment programs with AMP to try to realign our portfolio. We were not successful in that process, but we do have an optimistic outlook in the next couple of years with some higher price purchases rolling off or expiring. The next one being in December of 2020. So we'll replace $62 megawatt hour pricing with current market pricing, which is around $35. So our customers, we'll pass that savings on to our customers, and they'll see the direct effect of that when that takes place. But let me take a step back. Our rates, I mentioned that we've been in the electric business for over 130 years. During that 130 years, we've had some of the lowest rates, we've had some of the highest rates, and then some of the lowest rates again. I have to remind people that a little over 10 years ago, we had a below market contract with Synergy that was, I think, regretted by the same time it was signed, but it gave a very good price to our customers for a long period of time. But it expired in 2007, and we as a group and City Council approved, decide to get into generation ownership. And we own generation for the life of the project. So if the project lasts 50, 60 years, and in some case, these hydro projects will last 80 or 100 years, our customers will see that benefit. And granted, that's many years away, but the debt has to be paid off. And I truly believe we'll see below market pricing after that debt's paid off. The debt currently is 30-year, 35-year debt, depending on the project. But after that, Danville will be in a very good position, and we'll have to think aggressively and creatively how to manage that debt going out, where not to take advantage of current, maybe lower interest rates at the time, or spreading that debt out even further. But I'm very optimistic in Danville's power supply portfolio moving forward. I mentioned power cost adjustment changes. I keep mentioning AEP's rate increases, and we're going to have to pass that along through our PCA. We increased our PCA by $2 per 1,000 kilowatt hour customer starting in January. So the average customer, which is we expect to be 1,000 kilowatt hour, saw an increase of $2. We expect to have to increase that rate by another $2 in April. And then if we totally don't absorb that rate increase from AEP, then we expect to have to increase it an additional $2 in July. But we'll wait and see what the ramifications are of that. This graph clearly illustrates the increases over the past 10 years. We paid roughly $400,000 a month, and that's not annually, that's a month in transmission charges. Starting in January of this year, we're paying $1.3 million. So it's over 3 times what we paid 10 years ago. So
Big increase.
It's quite significant. Any questions before I move on? Okay. So what can we do moving forward? Where are some of the things that we can recommend to our customers, and what can we do as a government body? First of all, Nexent gave some good recommendations as far as energy efficiency, and we have to aggressively and seriously pursue those with our customers. We need to heavily market our home save program. It's not being utilized as much as we want it to be. We want more customers to take advantage of it. The HVAC tune-ups are a great idea. They help prolong existing heat pumps. Smart thermostats, we've already talked about, but they're a great resource to help with energy conservation. And then as well as different kinds of heat pumps, we have added natural gas furnaces over the past year, as well as insulation. So there's rebates available for people to take advantage of. We just need to get the information out there, get people thinking about how can I make my home more efficient, because that's where the true savings is. If your utility bill is high, you need to think about ways of conserving energy, and this is the easiest way. And we'll be glad to meet with anybody and discuss, come out and do maybe even a home audit. That's one of my proposals, is to actually do a infrared, have our staff educated and certified and start doing home energy audits where they can do infrared scanning to see where customers are losing energy, whether it's through the door cracks of a door or a window, if it's through a crawl space area or wherever. to see where projects need to be planned out. Second recommendation is we currently have an equal payment program where customers who are in good standing can sign up for the program, and as long as they don't have any delinquent balances, they can go on the equal payment program and have a levelized billing program throughout the year. So what I would like to suggest to the commission and city manager is that we allow all our customers to go on to the equal payment program, even if you have a delinquent payment, and levelize your payments over a 12-month process. Granted, if you have a delinquent payment, your equal payment plan or equal payment plan amount is going to be higher than someone with a zero balance. But this is a way to help people on fixed income to pay their utility bill and get caught back up. And at the end of a 12-month period, they'll be expected to have paid off their delinquent balances and only be responsible for what they're using going forward. So I would like the commission to explore this and have discussion on opening the equal payment program up to all customers, not only ones in good standing.
So they would still have to have been a customer with a history, so at least 12 months?
That's correct. They still have to be a customer. They would have had to have been an electric customer with us for 12 months.
But this would allow them to have a predictable bill every month?
That's
that
right.
Would be level?
It would be the same amount every month, and they would be expected to pay that amount every month to stay on the program.
So even an individual who had some delinquent balance would be eligible for this program and would still be afforded the same type of opportunity to level out their payments?
That's correct. If a customer came in, they had a $500 delinquent balance, and they used $250 a month on average, then that $500 would be averaged out over 12 months and added to that $250. So,
and then once that was paid off
over
that next year, they would potentially see a reduction.
That's correct.
As long as rates didn't go up.
Correct.
Sir?
Would you waive the good payment record?
Pardon me?
Would you waive the good payment record to qualify for that?
Yes, sir. We would have to in order to allow all our customers to be eligible for the program.
How much risk are we taking increasing our uncollectible accounts?
Really 1 month, because if a customer is not meeting the criteria or the contract for the equal payment program, then they would be subject to the current balance, penalties, or possible disconnection.
That's certainly a recommendation we have to give very serious thought to.
I think it's a good way to get customers who have a delinquent payment, who are able to make a fixed payment, get caught up and stay caught up.
So
right?
if I have a delinquent payment, if we use the example of $500, let's make it easy, we'll call it $600.
Mm-hmm.
And but my payment's roughly $250 a month. Well, instead of having to come up with that $600 and then that $250 next payment, they would actually be asked to contribute $300 in their next payment.
That's correct.
Seems pretty reasonable.
Yes, ma'am. You had a question?
No, I was just wondering, that's just catching up that one bill that's delinquent, based on what he just described. $600.
The current balance that they have today, they would be expected to meet that equal payment amount every month in order to stay on the equal
for the
payment
next 12 months. So rather than having to come up with $600 and then make my $250 payment to get even, they would be given time over the next 12 months to only make a $300 a month payment, which is very predictable. So at the end of 12 months, they would have nothing in arrears. And the nice part is they're not having to come up with that $600 of extra cash to keep everything running.
And they would turn into a customer in good standing and be completely caught up. Any other questions about equal payment program before I move on?
And they could just stay on the equal payment plan, which is the best way to pay the utilities.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it gives them an opportunity to, continue to build their credit. Okay.
My third recommendation is more of a staff recommendation to
Can we hold on just a second? I know we're running a little bit over on time, and I apologize for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut short the meeting after Mr. Gray finishes his presentation so that we're able to begin to move forward with the public comment session. Okay? Well, let's let Mr. Gray go ahead and finish. It'll only take a couple of more minutes. We've put a lot of thought into trying to provide some options to help in this difficult situation. Thank you. Sir?
So my third recommendation is to hedge more energy and transmission, or what we call FTRs, financial transmission rights, during the winter months. This would come at a cost, but it would protect us against those $300 megawatt hour days that we saw in early January. We were approximately 50% hedged on our transmission in January, but we had that other 50% that was exposed to market conditions that led to congestion. So my recommendation would be to look at the winter months only of really December, January, and February, and hedge out additional energy that we could be exposed to the market and transmission, and make a risk avoidance decision in order to avoid any kind of increases in market exposure. So this is something that we recommend moving forward. I don't have a pointer, but there's two blocks that expired in 2017 that will help offset some of the increases that we saw. But the big one that we're looking or anticipating rolling off in 2020 is approximately 17% of our energy needs, and that's that light gray shaded in the top left section of the pie chart. So that's a huge portion of our energy needs that will be replaced with much lower cost energy when 2020 gets here. So we're going to see a lot of savings when that time comes.
Thank you.
Recommendation number 4, real quick, is to continue to pursue more generation that's local to our system. In a few weeks, we'll have our Kentucky Solar Farm online. It'll be mid-March. But we want to look at some dispatchable resources that we can turn on at a moment's notice when prices escalate. So we want to look at some natural gas generation. We're currently in discussions with 2 different companies about providing a resource here locally that could purchase gas from us as well as provide electricity. So it would be a double win for us. But it would also be avoidance from any kind of increases in transmission costs, capacity costs, and any risk as far as congestion or higher energy prices. So we'll be bringing that back very soon. Hopefully we'll have a good product here in the next couple months. And I want to also mention evaluating other solar projects. Solar is very economical still, even with the solar panel tariff, but we're certainly very interested in renewable energy and deploying it accordingly. My final recommendation is the power cost adjustment and paying it down using the electric unrestricted fund balance. We have approximately $40 million at the end of the fiscal year 17 in the fund balance. City policy requires us to carry approximately 30 to meet the 90 days of expenses plus power supply. So my recommendation would be to, at the end of the fiscal year 18, June 30th, 2018, would be to possibly pay down up to $8 million, which would take our PCA balance almost in half of what it is today. Let me note that the January PCA is $16.9 million, and that was a forecast. The actual is around $16.7 million, so it's not a lot of difference. This slide was done before our January power costs came out. I don't anticipate having $2.2 million recover in February because we've had one of the warmest Februarys on record, maybe even warmer than last February, which was the second warmest February on record. So we'll have to evaluate how this forecast moves forward, but we do anticipate to continue to recover as we go on. But paying down a significant portion will certainly help us get back to zero and allow us to maybe even reduce that PCA and get it back down to possibly zero eventually as we get lower cost of supply coming in. Any questions about the PCA pay down? So this is something we would be looking at doing at the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, so to emphasize, we're going to want to make sure we understand what our fund balance is at the end of our fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. And that's because that's really the point at which our fiscal year ends. That's an anchor point for evaluation of future bonding, credit ratings, and that type of thing.
Yeah, once the books are closed, and it may take a little bit after June 30th, but we'll have a good idea of what a conservative number is that we feel safe that could be paid down towards the PCA balance. Yes, sir.
I'm certainly in favor of doing that to help lower the PCSA, but we really want to be careful. Last budget year and this year, we're really not adding much to that unrestricted fund balance.
Right.
So if we take a lot out of it and we get too low, then we're going to have to jack the rates up to get back in the proper level. So I'm in favor of doing it now, but we better watch that balance.
And that's what I put in the recommendation, up to $8 million. Setting it at exactly $8 million is probably not the right thing to do. It may be somewhere between $2 and $8 million, whatever we wind up coming out at the end of the year.
So when we think about the history of dealing with this PCA, which really began to get out of control several years ago, and we actually didn't take actions to pass on costs, trying to be, quite frankly, kind to our ratepayers, and unfortunately dug ourselves into a huge hole. And it was about that time that I got asked to come back to serve on this commission. And quite frankly, it's been very difficult. This has not been an easy business for us to try to steer through some rough waters. You know, it's been painful for our customers. It's been painful for our citizens. Are we in a position where we feel like once we make these types of changes, we will be in a position to put this behind us? When we say put us behind us, when do you think that would actually occur?
I looked at the current forecast, and it looks like spring of 2019, if the financials pan out like they're forecast to. But the goal is to get back to a zero balance and move the PCA monthly based on prior and future months' known power supply cost.
Like we do in our gas business.
Exactly, like the PGA is operated. But it will be well into calendar year 2019 before we're able to do that. But that is the goal, and that's where we need to be. It's currently hurting our credit scoring by not having a formula-driven PCA. We have a fixed PCA that we're adjusting quarterly. So that's the way we need to operate, because it is affecting our projects that we are involved in with AMP. So it does hit us in different ways.
Yep, pay me now, pay me later. Sir, Mr. Dobbins?
Question, just so I'll make sure I understand the math that you're discussing here. With a recent balance of the accumulated PCA of almost $17 million, and say mid-year this year we pay down 8, perhaps, based on the valuation at that time, that leaves $9 million left, all other things equal. how do we get how do we pay that to zero by 2019, which is next year?
This forecast does not calculate any kind of pay down. The forecast on the slide does not factor in an $8 million pay down. It's the current forecast if we didn't do anything.
So in July, and we're not forecasting to pay down this
Okay.
fiscal year. If we were at 12/1 at the end of June, and we made a payment in July, which actually would probably be more like August, the way we close our books, that would drop it down into 4 and change.
Okay, thank
That's
you
a
for
really
that
good question.
clarification. I was having trouble seeing
And you
how
know,
we got there.
the commission knows I've had angst about trying to drag this out to 2021, which is what we were talking to potentially do. I don't think we can do this. We've got to get it behind us.
Yeah.
City Council has authorized us to have this paid down by December 2020, and that was an extension that we requested of them. It was originally December of this year. So we're looking forward to the day that this is paid off from power
Okay.
costs from 6-8 years ago.
Well, not doing so, to your point in this discussion, leaves a larger and larger potential for rate shocks, to all the customers,
Right.
which is definitely where we don't want to be.
So this is a way to eventually have some relief for our customers, is to pay this balance off using our electric savings account or our unrestricted fund balance.
One thing certainly that was presented today that I think we need to address at our next meeting is the modification, recommendation, is it 2? Go back in here. The equal payment plan. Is there anything that would restrict our actually potentially considering that for adoption at our next meeting?
No.
Michael, are we good to do that? Is there anything that would restrict us from changing that policy in the current fiscal year?
I don't know of anything.
Our attorney can
Sir?
answer that question.
Under the city code 38-51, the city manager makes decisions related to that. This commission is more than welcome to ask the city manager.
To make a recommendation.
Yes, sir.
So it's the city manager and Mr. Larkin, you would be in a position to make that decision in the fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay.
Technically, I believe you can make that recommendation tonight. I believe is that.
You can make it
I wouldn't have any objection to having this council, this commission make that recommendation tonight, but that would have to come from our fellow commissioners.
Which recommendation do you speak of?
The recommendation would be to implement a revision to the equal payment plan found on page 55. It's under proposal 1, which would waive the zero balance requirement of good payment record and allow customers with delinquent balances to amortize payments over a 12-month period.
It's number 2 on your screen.
Okay, what about the recommendation with regard to the contribution from
The
General-
unrestricted
the-
fund
the-
balance.
unrestricted funds to the PCA? Why wouldn't that be tonight, too?
That's
I think the issue that we have here is we've got to make sure that we are at least $30 million in our unrestricted fund balance at the end of the fiscal year.
That's included in his recommendation.
It is
Up
not.
to. He says 2 to 8 million.
Pardon me?
He said up to,
Up to $8
$8
million.
million.
So
which the purpose was after the end of the year, that decision would be made. And it could be as high as 8 million, or if it's not there, it would be something less.
I think we're not in a position to make that motion at this time. We, from our fiscal responsibility, we need to see the year close.
Well, okay.
I would not want to make that recommendation.
All right. I disagree with you, but your chair.
Okay, thank you.
I think, just to clarify, recommended motion number 1 actually calls for the recommendation to city council, but also says it's up to $8 million after June 30th. So I believe it leaves room for an assessment to be made
That was my
after
point.
June 30th. The way the motions were written now.
It says after.
But, I mean, that, really, there's not a whole lot of teeth to doing it now. It's not requiring it to happen, but it's kind of telegraphing an intention.
I think we could make I would want to specify a dollar amount, but we could specify it with a basement clause. I'm okay with that. Are you okay with a basement clause, Fred?
I don't see, when it says up to 8 million, it makes sense to me that it's a staff decision, but whatever you come up with.
Well, I mean, a recommendation of up to 8 million with a basement clause that, city fund balance policy at the end of the fiscal year is honored.
Well, yeah, I thought that would,
Yeah,
and I didn't think there was any intention of not honoring that.
yeah. I don't have any disagreement with you on that.
Well, I think you can word it so it's understood that's the intent.
So do we want to look at 2 recommendations today? One to the city manager and one to council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, why don't we consider the one to the city manager first, and then let's handle the second one after that. So does somebody want to take a shot at recommendation 2?
Yeah, I'll try.
Thank you, sir.
I move that the Danville Utility Commission recommends the City Council paying down the power cost adjustment balance up to $8 million after June 30th, 2018, using electric restricted fund balance, based upon the premise that it meets all the minimum requirements of the unrestricted fund balance.
Sounds very good. Any discussion? Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Will we have a vote, please?
Ms. Kane?
Yes.
Mr. Dobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Larkin?
Yes.
Mr. Turpin?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson Branch?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. So, again, the understanding is that will be applied, after the end of the fiscal year, and the Utilities Department will advise us of its recommendation.
It will also have to go to city council, so city council will have to approve.
They'll have to approve that. So what about the equal payment plan program?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
I move that the Danville Utility Commission approve of modifying the equal payment plan service policy by allowing residential and small general service commercial customers with delinquent balances to pay for their utilities in equal monthly payments rather than experience the seasonal fluctuations characteristic of normal billing payments.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we had to modify that motion based on our attorney's opinion, Mr. Dodson's opinion, and I'll let him explain it.
So, under Danville Code 2-278, the Utilities Commission is the official action board for general service policies not designated to the city manager, but Danville Code Section 38-51 specifically designates the city manager as being empowered to make such rules and regulations as may be necessary for the effective implementation of the equal payment plan. So the recommendation tonight should be a recommendation that the city manager
Yes.
make the adjustment as opposed to the utilities commission itself.
It's on the
That was my understanding. This is a recommendation to the city manager, not on behalf of the commission.
And it's on the screen, so this,
My screen's not working, so I apologize.
I gave her my copy.
So we're going to,
Let her reread it.
if you would reread that, given the advice of council.
I move that the Danville Utility Commission recommend to the city manager, as authorized in the City of Danville Municipal Code, Section 38-51, to modify the equal payment plan service policy by allowing residential and small general service commercial customers with delinquent balances to pay for their utilities in equal monthly amounts rather than experience the seasonal fluctuations characteristic of normal billing payment.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson Branch. Any further discussion? Any further clarifications from council? Are we good? Do we have a second?
I second.
Could we have a roll, please?
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Dobbins?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Larkin?
I have, on the advice of our attorney, I'm abstaining from this vote.
Mr. Turpin?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson Branch?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The recommendation carries. And I'm sure Mr. Larkin will act on it post haste. Thank you, sir. All right. At this point in time, we're 30 minutes past where we wanted to be, and my apologies due to the business of the commission interfering with your opportunity to speak. So what I'm going to do at this point in time is I'm going to ask the city manager to refrain from any further communications if he doesn't mind. So, Mr. Larkin, do you have any further communications that you need to make at this time?
No, I had planned to just thank the utility commission members as volunteers serving the city. I appreciate the time and effort that you give toward this service to the city, to our staff, who works hard to try to provide a good service to the customers. Your advice and thoughtful consideration of our recommendations and our policies and your input on those things is very appreciated, and appreciate all the efforts you're going to be given tonight to listen to the concerns of customers. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any needs for any members of the utilities staff to speak at this time? I hear none. Commission members, any needs from any of you at this time? Okay, that's going to move us into the public comment phase. What I want to do is I want to kind of remind everybody of the rules of engagement here. We're going to move on to what we call the public comment period. Just as a reminder, what was announced at the beginning of the meeting, because many of you were not present, just like at a city council meeting, each person from the public may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. This is going to be timed, so we are going to be using a timer. If you are representing a group, in that case, you may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. And I did want to comment here. If an individual or is representing themselves or a corporation or a company, and you're going to discuss your individual bill, we're not going to be in a position to resolve issues regarding individual bills today. But what we are going to do is we're going to ask everyone to provide their name and their address for the record. And if those items do come up, our customer service organization will diligently be available to help you. So we're not saying that there's no reason for you not to comment on it, but we're not in a position to have the staff here this evening to help you if you have an individual item. But I will tell you, we will make sure that they are so noted in these proceedings, and we will be making sure to follow up in each and every case. I think we're ready. So, Quite frankly, I don't go to city council meetings. I think I've got a couple in my time. We have a podium that's up here. So if you would like to speak, move forward. Ma'am?
Thank you. My name is Sheila Baines. I live at 182 Charles Street in Danville. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you, Ms. Baines.
I'm glad that some actions have been recommended by this commission today. This is certainly a start, but we have to do more. I am very busy out in the community meeting with people, and I hear of the extreme hardship that many of our citizens are facing regarding their bill. I heard from Tanya. She's a mother of 2 minor children. She's a full-time student with a limited budget, 17 more days before her next bill is due, and she's trying to figure out how she's going to pay this bill. She doesn't know how she's going to come up with a $120 increase in her bill. She says just because they made sometime a bad deal does not mean that I should have to pay for it. And Susan, who is a single mother that has an $880 bill that she has to pay. She has less than $70 left to last her another week to cover her gas. She travels back and forth out of town to her job and her groceries. To the elderly lady that I know that's trying to be approved for her Social Security disability while living off of a pension that's going to be running out in the next few months, who has an increase from $60 to $170, who is already having to choose what medicines she can take every month. She's wondering what else she can give up or has to choose not to take. These are real stories from real people in our community, and something has to be done. People want solutions and not quick fixes, and everything must be on the table for discussion. Communication is vital to the realization of a common shared vision for the future of our region. Communication is key to providing people with the ability to make decisions that they need to make in their everyday life. Rabbi Herschel said, in a free society, few are guilty, but all are responsible. Now, I'm not trying to lay blame on any person, but I will say that you, as commission members and our council, are responsible for helping us to get this issue resolved. It's something that we all have to work on together. I would like to see us implement a task force comprised of people from all walks of life to work with city staff to discuss possible solutions where we can see results, to where we can learn about what we can change or what we can't change. Then I'd like for this group to return into their respective communities and share the information that they've learned on how to understand the utility bill, to where to apply for fuel assistance or funds to help to pay for a utility bill, to other measures that we can all take to save energy and money. Theodore Adorno was right when he said, "The condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak." So I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to hear from the citizens about the increasing utility bills and how they affect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baines.
My name is Mickey Ingram, 1099 A.L. Philpott Highway, Henry County, Axton, Virginia. And I'm here just to talk about the system. I'm not here to talk about December, but how many of you people saw the paper 8 days ago? Headlines. How many seen this? Second highest paid rates in the state of Virginia. Now, if I want to expand my company to Danville, would I consider that right now? When I look at Richmond, I look at Washington, Alexander area, I look at Hampton area, would I really want to come to Danville, Virginia? I really question that, so I'm not here to ridicule anybody. All I can do is base my information on what I've found on the internet. And I looked at the customer base of 42,000 customers, 20,000 or 48% is only Danville. So 52% had to come from Henry, Halifax, and Pennsylvania County. Now you people digest that a little bit. Y'all are speaking for a lot of people other than just the city. Then I look at the commercial accounts. Danville had 2,800 of the 4,300, or roughly 65%. But if you look at the industrial accounts, Henry County and Halifax had 200 of the 245. That opens your eyes to say, what kind of co-op have we really got, of what we're really doing? I go back to 2014 when the Virginia Manufacturers Association with attorney William Russell, how are we taking this money from Pennsylvania County, Henry, and Halifax and putting it in a general fund? Are we not in a direct violation of state taxation? And Mr. Lawyer, you need to really look at that. Why should the adjacent location, Henry and Halifax County, meet to support the general fund of Danville? Hey, I don't mind 5%, but is it 10%? Is it 15%? Or is it 20%? What are we really charging Henry, Halifax, and Pennsylvania County? I don't know. All I can do is look at the numbers I've got. And then I go back, and I'm a historian. I go back when some of y'all or somebody signed the contracts back in 2007 for the 5 hydroelectric plants, and I don't know what the rates were. Then you signed another contract. What funds did we pay for the coal plant in southern Illinois? What funds did we pay for the natural gas plant in 2007? How much have we paid for the scrapped coal operation plant that never come into existence? When you sign that contract, you're obligated to pay that. I've never seen a number published in that. And what are we paying for the 2009 21.5 megawatt project we bought from Morgan Stanley in 2009? I can't find a date on that. Am I allowed by the Freedom of Information Act to ask you people to provide that information? I don't know. So then I go back and look at these contracts from 2006 to 2020, and I'm assuming we're in a 6-year contract that's going to end in December 2020. If we cancel that today, what kind of penalty would the city have to pay? I'm sure it's probably not feasible. I'd like to ask. And then how much longer are we going to have to pay 30% to American Electric Power every year? I know we got to pay some, but I stop and look at these numbers, and they're getting bigger and bigger. I really don't know. And this PCA, which is a new term for me, but I understand it's a power cost adjustment, is fluctuating every month. And I've seen some of the presentation tonight. It makes a little bit of sense, but it don't make a lot. So I'm not here complaining. I'm here on a fact-finding mission. What are we going to do to make Danville attractive to get new customers for electric, because based on right now, ain't no way in the world I'd bring my company to the city of Danville. And that's a shame. That's a shame. God bless y'all, and thank you for my time.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram.
Can't quite see your name there, so.
Hi, my name's Bill Donahue.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you. Wonderful council members. I'm not here to throw stones at either side.
Sir, could you?
My name is Cabell B. Mitchell. I live at 252 Park Circle here in Danville. We do need to find a resolution to this. And the way to do it is work in concert between citizens and city council. Like you're saying, everybody says, oh, everything needs to be clear. Well, it is clear, and it's been made here clear by everybody. So we need to work in concert together on this. And there's those great words that's up above your head there, and everybody knows it. We trust in God, and in God we trust. And we need to do that first, and then everything will follow.
Yes, sir.
So, what are we going to do together? I'm not talking about throwing stones. I'm saying, what are we going to do together to make this better? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joey Bray, B-R-A-Y. I'm at 3685 R. and Dale Smith Drive, Danville, Virginia, but that's Pittsylvania County.
Pittsylvania County.
And I'm certainly not here to talk about my individual bill tonight, even though that was horrendous enough. And if I had the capacity to pick my house up and move it 1.5 miles eastward, my bill would have been half for the month. But that's beside the point. What I'm here to discuss this evening is houses of worship. I represent the Tabernacle, and so that address is 1978 South Boston Road, Danville. The most current bill that we received, of course, covered the period of 1/6 to 2/5, and that bill was a stunning $12,536. Now, we're a large facility. I grant you that. We're a large church. I grant you that. But we don't meet 7 days a week. And it would be nice if the peak demand were such that we could understand it. And perhaps we need to have whole services between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. I don't know. But that is a significant amount of money to pay for utilities, which takes away from services such as going into Purdom Woods and providing care there to those citizens, from providing care at certain the backpack feeding program that we do at Schofield Elementary. All of these kinds of monies takes away from those kinds of services. So that was the most recent bill. Well, here is the bill from December 5 to January. And that bill was $12,876. Actually, $300 and some higher than the bill that had the cold week of January in it. Almost $25,000 in 2 months. It's unconscionable. Unconscionable. And painful, and we need some help. We do. We desperately need some help. My final comments would be this. The recommendations that the good gentleman made here, the recommendations to help individual residents. By the way, January churches receive a lot of calls for help with utility
Oh,
bills.
sure you do.
January, they tripled. February, doubled. Well, we couldn't even pay our own utility bill hardly, much less help anybody else. But the recommendations that you made, other than the free recommendations to reduce energy cost, other than the free ones and the reduced cost ones, majority of the people in here can't afford them. They can't do it. As noble as it is, we need some help. I was so grateful to hear Mr. Gray's recommendations about solar and some of the alternative energies. I do hope that that comes to fruition, as well as some of the other recommendations that he made, laudable indeed. But we most assuredly need help as quickly as possible. Thank you for the time that you've given me.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Donahue, members of the council. My name is Robert Williams. I live at 369 Iris Lane.
Could you repeat your name, sir? I apologize.
Yes, sir. It's Robert Williams.
Williams. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. I came here today to listen, learn, and voice my concern over the panic of these large utility bills. While researching the city of Danville, it does not take long to research and find that city council, the city manager, and other members of our local government to develop the theory that there have been many, many bad decisions made here. Whether or not our officials want to admit it or not, Danville has been in a long period of recession. Some believe it began near the year 2006 when Dan River Mills finally closed its doors. Our last consensus shows that the population in the city is approximately 42,000 people. Approximately 27% of Danville's households have income levels below the poverty line. Danville has the fourth highest overall poverty rate, highest in the state among school children, and the second lowest median household income. When people who are looking to move to a city, a small amount of research conducted on this particular city shows everything that a person does not want to see. Danville is seen as a city that has been currently in a long-term recession, a rising crime rate, no good paying jobs, gang violence, and an exceptionally high utility rates per customer with nothing to do but eat, shop, or go to church. Good paying jobs are scarce, which in turn has led to a high unemployment rate, and I will argue that it has a significant factor on our crime rate. If it is not enough to discourage you from moving here, Danville Utility residential customers pay the highest rates among city-owned utility companies in Virginia. We are the second highest among 36 electrical providers in the state, making Danville approximately 16% higher than the national average.
That's correct.
The average age of the citizens here in Danville alone is 42 years of age. I have met and talked with older citizens that are customers of Danville Utilities. A large majority have stated to me that they are now having to sacrifice food, medication, doctor's visits, and to just, quote, keep the lights on. People are starving, people are freezing, and doing without. No one should have to juggle between human necessities and the cost of electric bills. The people of this community deserve better. Many citizens have expressed that one reason that has kept them here in Danville was the reasonable cost of living up until the electric bill panic. The bottom line is Danville does not offer anything appealing. Decisions from years past continue to halt the residents of this day. I don't know personally how this city has survived as long as it has. Businesses and companies are highly discouraged from moving here for all the reasons I have listed earlier. City Council has to do a better job at running this city. The same City Council that decided to give themselves a $5,000 pay raise in December is the same City Council that has done nothing to turn this city around. You guys are out of touch with the community. We as a community deserve better and demand better. I was always taught to never bring a problem without a fix. I'm aware that the city is currently in a contract through 2020. I don't expect you guys to answer this question right now, just something to think about. Is there any way that we could break this contract? It is not simple, and it's not affordable, and it's not working. Is it possible to have our electric rates based on the average income of the residents in this community? We need to change the outlook of Danville as a whole, meaning we do whatever is needed to attract large companies, offset our high electrical rates in exchange for tax breaks for these companies. Then in itself would absorb a lot of these ridiculously expensive bills that we have to pay. Has due diligence been done in the possibility of decoupling and what it could do to possibly help this area? What can be done to attract larger electrical suppliers to this area? We all would benefit from competition. If we continue to run Danville as it is, sooner than later, we will not have a city. I ask you to all investigate all avenues to improve the feel and look of this city. Research and determine a solution.
Mr. Williams?
Sir.
Your time is up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wanda Hackney, and I live at 251 Locust Lane. And I wanted to voice my opinion here today because the gentleman was talking earlier that a lot of times we can sign up to get this, get that, energy efficient stuff. Well, I did. I'm almost 60 years old. My son is, I feel sorry for anybody that's got to raise children today on a fixed income. Here I am. You couldn't get no energy sufficient than I do. I have my heat at 65. It don't go no higher than 70 if I do that. I go to bed with it at 65. I wear warm clothes day and night. I signed up. I was blessed here a while back. Matter of fact, this month is 2 years. I signed up, and I was blessed to get a roof, gutters, insulation throughout my whole house, the attic, the basement, all the crawl spaces, gutters, new storm doors, new doors, energy sufficient furnace, energy efficient air conditioner, and my electric bill is still worse. It's worse than it was when I had my old one. Now, I got a problem with that because it should have been better. You can put your hands at my windows, you're not going to feel any drafts. This house is old, but it is in good shape. And like I said, I was blessed to get all of this. But it's still, my electric bill is worse. And I can't go no lower with that thermostat than I can go. Or either I'm going to freeze. So I got all of these things done to my home. And like I said, I'm thankful for it. And they keep saying that this year, you know, we had temperatures low. Last year we had snow. We had bottom records low. And still, I can't even use my dryer no more because I can't afford it. So I hang my clothes up on a rack to dry near a heat vent. I mean, what can I do? I can't afford it. I used my dryer last year. I used all these things before, and it snowed and we had temperatures below freezing. But this year, it is skyrocketed. I've never paid an electric bill past $202. Now it's almost $300. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. And like I said, I know I conserve. I've been doing it ever since I lived at 254 Locust Lane. I always conserve. I sit in the house. The light I have is either a candle or I watch TV. And if I might read my Bible with the lamp on, and other than that, I cut it off. I sit with the TV on. I eat out. Most of the time I eat out. I don't even cook at home. So I just like to know what's going on between last year and this year, and I can't conserve. And when they was going through this peak hours, which was between 7 in the morning to 10 at night, when I lowered my thermostat, it run worse than it did if I just kept it at 68 or 70. And I just, like I said, I'm just kind of a concerned customer. I want to know what's going on, and I thank y'all for your time.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lucius Whipple. I stay at 625 Jefferson Street. I'm retired from the city for 37 years. I'm 78 years old. God been good to me. I still do part-time work. That's why I got to do to pay the bill. Last month, my bill was $609.58. I got a bill for this coming month, the 3rd of February, for $526.18. What's going on? Half the time I'm not there, because I work part-time with a janitorial service. I'm a widow. My wife been dead 8 years. I'm hardly there. Me and my fiance, we eat out most of the time. Oh, I can cook now. But I don't like eating by myself. So I like to know, we got old people here retired, like I am, older than me. I mean, like the people say, people can't afford it. I mean, I love working for the city. Back then when it was hard, shoveling, now they got machines. And they don't even clean up like we used to do. They pick up the trash, pick up the brush, and leave the trash. When I was working there, we whip up Forest Hill, America, everywhere. They don't care. They don't take pride in the job. I watch them. A lot of the guys come out, be getting my stuff up, that knew me when I was working. I get them a Whipple. I appreciate it. I give them a Whipple, give them a soda. Show my appreciation. So something should be done. No kidding. I just paid $600 last month. I got $500. Still too high. I had my bill. I've been where I'm at for 13 years. No high, $205. I just want to thank you. Thank you, sir.
My name is Frank Burdett. Live at 2061 Wilkerson Road in Ringgold. Most of what I've got to say is going to try to bring us to how we got to the point that we are. When Joe King was city manager, he and the director of utilities, Ken Ashworth, I assume, negotiated the existing 50-year, $500 million contract with AMP of Ohio, the one that we're currently locked into. Unbelievable and a poor business decision. Why such a long contract and why involving so much money? I thought rates could be renegotiated during the contract period, but in recently speaking with Mr. Gray, he said that cannot be done. Is that not a major conflict of interest? When Mr. King was city manager, he was on the board of trustees, as I think Mr. Gray is now, and that I consider a conflict of interest. Mr. King abruptly retired and later passed away, and in all sincerity, God rest his soul. Mr. Ashworth, from what I understand, retired under pressure. And I was asked, was Mr. Ashworth under investigation? Has anyone on this council, the city council, the utilities commission, or the director of utilities ever received any form of gratuity or compensation from AMP? That would be a good question. What is the current electrical tariff AMP is charging to Danville? I would like to know that at some point. I understand AMP is not on the stock market, but they do sell municipal securities. And I would question if there are any current rate or pending or abandoned project lawsuits against AMP. The real utility rates in in Martinsville, are $10 for the first 900 kilowatt hours, or 10 cents per kilowatt hour, and then only 8 cents after 900. Danville's is 13.4 cents per kilowatt hour. My bill during the peak period was $770. It's normal that my bills are in the $500 range. I have about a 2,300 square foot home. But if I had lived in Martinsville, my bill would have been $312 less, right at 60%. I do understand, and when I was working, retired, in a manufacturing environment most of my career. And I do know there's some 5 to 7 industries in this area that are receiving much lower rates than we are as residential consumers. I've had some friends to ask me about the smart meters, and that did AMP have any influence or dealings with the smart meters here in Danville. Another friend of mine saw on the internet, and I know we can't take everything on the internet for real, but he had seen that some smart meters were as much as 580% high. Now that's ridiculous, but I would ask, is Danville certainly accurate? I understand there's some question about the accuracy of the smart meters. Lastly, and it was in yesterday's Register and Bee, and the editorial was from the editors, and they recommended maybe it's time that Danville get out of the utilities business. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Good evening.
Hello. I am hard of hearing, so I haven't really heard much of anything that was said, except when I was standing over there so I could read lips. I have a couple of questions. My light bill this month was $768. I'm a widow.
For a moment, could I ask your name, please?
I cannot hear you.
Your name?
Susan Cook.
Hello, Ms. Cook. Thank you.
So my question is, when the city of Danville implemented this new system, meter system, why is it that they cannot go in a half a month and check to see if your water or your electricity is running high, so then you can get it fixed? They come out 1 month, my water was more than my electric and everything combined. Wow. Because I had a toilet running. I'm hearing impaired. I did not hear it running. I don't look in the toilet. I close the lid and flush. This month, there was something different. When I called the utilities department, they were going to charge $50 to come out for somebody to tell me that the meter was running fast, and then if I fixed the problem, it would be $50 more to come back to tell me whether it was normal or was still reading high. But yet, they have come 2 or 3 times to check my water and left a note on my door. So how does that make sense? Why do you have to pay for them to come and see your meter when you don't have to pay for them to come and see your water? It's only one person in my house. I mean, either you're going to pay your light bill, you're not going to have electricity, or you don't eat. And these elderly people and people that do not have a lot of money, this is ridiculous. I have heard so many people say they are ready to move out of the city. And something should be done about this. In 4 months, I have paid over $2,000 and some to the city of Danville. And that's a crying shame to be a single person. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
How you doing, sir?
Good evening, sir.
Jury. My name is James Atterbury. I live at 317 Northmount Boulevard, my wife and I. I wanted to talk about our electrical bill, but, you know, it's been tough. Thank God I can still work at 75 years old. because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to pay no light bill. But we have a power pole right to the right of our driveway, and we didn't start paying it any attention until the light bill went up. So what I really want to know, this light don't go off at all. It stays on all day. When I get up the next morning, it's still on. So my wife told me to come and ask, if we could get somebody to check that and see what's happening, because that might be the problem. I don't know. But, I just want to thank you all. I'm from South Carolina. She's from here. We've been traveling all over the world, United States, for the past 28 years. We've been married. I'm an ex-professional ball player, plus Negro League baseball player. So I've had some good times in my life. And she wanted to come back home, and I fell in love with Danville. I really have. So I thank you all, and if it's all right, will you please try to check and see if that light have anything to do with our electric? I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is Trudy Fisher. I live at 1418 Blair Loop Road in Danville. I'm just going to say I can relate to all the single elderly here. A year ago, I'm new in this community, but a year ago, the highest bill that I had was $380 during the winter. And this year, it's $700, last month, and $800. And I don't understand it. I'm just like with those other ladies who said, I keep my temperature at 65. Basically, I shower at the Y because I've got a membership there. And I live a simple life. I turn my lights off when I walk out the door, and so I hardly use any water. I mean, I don't understand the increase in the bill. I've come down here to the city when I've come to pay my bill, and I've asked them about it. Last year, she said to me, insulate your house. I can't afford it. And this time, when I went, I asked the same thing that those other guys said, to have it inspected, $50 to have it inspected, and $50 for this. Who's got that extra money? No, I think my bill's going to be high this month because it's been cold. I think it's going to be about $1,000. And I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to get the medicine I'm supposed to get or eat or pay my bills. And I am looking to move out of town. I'm sorry. People love me here, and I love the town, but I can't afford it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tommy Bennett, and I live at 394 Seminar Trail. And I would just like to say I agree with everyone that has come before me, but I would also like to say on February the 15th at 12:15, I had a chance to walk into the utility office in Danville to pay my very expensive bill. The line was out the door. There was 5 slots for a teller. There was only one person working. And I said, okay, I'm going to wait this out. I waited. Then a second person walked up to the teller line. So I said, oh, great, we do have 2. Well, that person closed their line, so we was back to 1 again. So I walked over and I complained, and I talked to Ms. Scott. And Ms. Scott explained to me that she just doesn't have any staff in utility. It's the rudest people I have ever met in that office. They are rude. They are very rude, and I wish that the commissioners and the council and the city manager would look into that staff that works and that because they are very rude. And I wish that you would at least hire some minorities because the office doesn't show of any color or whatsoever, and especially here in 2018. But I would suggest to everyone that I cut back on my lights and tried everything that I could for my utility bill. So what I've done, I bought a power pack and I use my light at night for my power pack. So get you a $30 power pack and just use your light at least until daylight saving time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brenda McLaughlin. I live at 162 Rocklawn Avenue. I have every one of your articles. It's a lot of jibber jabber jabber. And I'm just angry with these utility bills. Had I known the history here and now in Danville, I would never have moved back here with these utility bills. I closed on a house last year. These bills this year are out of sight. And I had people visit me before Easter, before Thanksgiving. They'd be like, come down from D.C., like, why is everyone's house so dark? Like, because they can't afford to turn the lights on. I mean, this is ridiculous. I talk to people all over the country, and I tell them about utility bills. They're like, what is city council doing? What are the people doing down there? This is crazy. This is my hometown. I moved back here from D.C. after living in Maryland and D.C. for 37 years. This is ridiculous. And you all made some bad mistakes, and I hope whoever did that contract, I hope that they're no longer employed here. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Donald Powell. I live at 293 Marlin Road, Cascade, Virginia. I'm a county customer. From what I understand, we have a little bit over 42,000 customers for the city of Danville Utilities.
Yes, sir.
Right now, a little bit over 40,000 of them seem to be ticked off. They've discussed it with the utilities department in the city of Danville. What January's bill did is it opened some eyes on some things that's been going on for quite a while. These rates didn't happen overnight. There have been many decisions made, some of them not good. The contract that was signed with AMP Ohio, very long term, very short-sighted. From what I understand, we are the second highest rated municipality in the state of Virginia on our rates. And people are wanting to know why. I don't think that will be answered here tonight, but there are some questions I would like to ask myself. Mr. Burnett brought up some interesting things, some things I've known before. Mr. Gray is on the Board of Trustees for AMP Ohio. I have a question there. Is that a paid position? And I would like to follow that up with another question. Would it be feasible to have an external audit of the utility department to make sure that the funds are being used to the utmost benefit of the customers of the city of Danville and the city itself? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Curtis Woodson. And
Hello, Mr. Woodson.
How you doing? I live at 540 Gay Street, right here in Danville. I was born here. I got a couple questions also. I mean, I was an over-the-road truck driver, gone 2 months at a time, and my bill stayed the same. Everything except for the refrigerator, and the TV was off, everything was off. My bill, no matter what I did, what they told me to do at the commission, the city down there, my bill stayed the same. It shouldn't be the same month after month or more if I'm absent. No one's cooking, nobody's washing, nobody's doing nothing, but still, it stayed the same. I would like an explanation of that. I mean, and then when I, like the lady said before, when I called and went down there, I actually physically went to them and asked them, what is the problem? I believe it's a fault in the meter. They were going to charge me $50 to come out and check it. Their own meter. I mean, now, how do you, I know machines break down. I work with them. And why do they think that their meters will not malfunction? Who's checking? Thank you for letting me speak my piece.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hugh Mitchell. I live at 145 Afton Road, Danville, Virginia. It's actually in the county. Prior to that, I lived in the city of Danville, also for 30 years, and so I pretty much had electricity from the city for about 45 years.
Good evening, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. I come to the meeting this afternoon, and I was kind of surprised and everything. You guys had the guy come from the auditing firm to explain the audit and everything. First of all, I'd like to introduce that I have audited the city of Danville for about 20 years prior to retiring and going into home business and what have you. And we audited the city and we did everything that was necessary also, just like the other gentleman said. But doing an audit and doing a rate increase is two different animals. An audit, you're making sure that everything is being accounted for as a whole and give an opinion on the whole city, whether it's good, bad, or injustice. When I got out of the auditing business, I went into home business, building homes. I built 649 homes from 1992 until 2012 when I had open heart surgery. When the Utility Commission was first started, I asked to be on the committee, and I feel like to report to be on the committee. I was living in the city at that time. A fellow named Joe King was utility. I guess he has the same position that Jason's got over here now. But he basically told me, he said, we don't need anybody like you on the Utility Commission. We don't need people that's smarter than we are on designing and working rates. Prior to that, the City of Danville Council made the decision, and really the Utility Commission now is just kind of a cover-up to the City of Danville council members. But either way, I didn't get on the job. I tried to apply several times, and at that time when established, the first person that got on the commission was Richard Turner. He was retired from city manager. And over the years, I've noticed that they put people on there that is related to the city of Danville and not much representation of outside to give outside opinions and help with the rates. And then I live in a county now, and we've got one representative in a county that represents this utility commission. And I'm not saying he's a fine gentleman and everything, but at the same time, he's a retired employee of the city of Danville. And when he spoke tonight, he spoke that just like he wants to make sure the city is great, but we need to make sure all the customers are served correctly. And so I've tried to get on the utility commission since then. I had a retired city councilman give me a call Saturday, and he said, Hugh, you need to also mention the fact that I think it's time for the city of Danville to get out of the utility business and let these private-owned do it. Now, I've done rate studies for these different cooperatives throughout the years, Mecklenburg Electric, Craig Botetourt that was showed up on the screen. They're comparing that Craig Botetourt's higher than Danville. Well, you got to keep in mind, Craig Botetourt's up above Roanoke in the mountains. Their density population is a house about every 7 miles, and you got all these right-of-ways you have to cut by hand. So don't compare City of Danville to be the second highest in the state. Say they are the highest in the state because of the people. And I feel like that, and I've tried to get on this commission, and I'm just going to be honest with you, and nobody would allow it. And the other day I mentioned one of the city councilwomen, and I'm going to reapply. Now, if I get on, I'm going to do the job that I need to be done, and I'm going to look after the people, the utility people, and these people, all of y'all get paid to be on this utility commission. I'm like,
oh, really?
That's what they told me.
Oh,
you get a small
absolutely
fee.
not.
But
No,
either way, I'm going to be like Donald Trump. I'm going to look out for the people, and that's all I'm going to do and everything. But on the other hand, too, we've got, when you go to this cost of service study, you can divide up expenses and do what you want to. But why is it I understand 10 million is being taken out of the electric fund, put over the general fund, and what established that? And I think it's time for an independent investigator or a group of people to look in to see the cost that is associated with this rate increase.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Zero compensation.
I've only been on it 6 months.
Pardon me? Let's let the gentleman. Let's go ahead and let the individual up here speak.
My name is Reggie Adams. I'd rather not give my address because I'm scared they may pull my plug before I get home. But I got like really one major concern, other than everything else that everybody else been talking about. And I know that the gentleman that was up here earlier was talking about the helpful staff, but he can't be talking about the people at Harris Financial Center. Because it must be somewhere else he paying his bill at, because I ain't noticed nobody in there helpful down there. But my problem is, when I first got my power turned on and you have to pay a deposit. So when you pay your deposit to the people at the financial building, the deposit is more important than your bill. So I'm on a fixed income. So if I don't have the money, if I put down my first deposit and then you come back to pay the second amount, if I don't have the money to cover the bill and the deposit, and you go to pay the bill, they take the money for your bill and put it on your deposit, which in turn they tell you where you can be 30 days behind on your bill, and you still got another 30 days to catch it up. But that's if you got the money to pay two bills together. Right. So if you don't, what you end up doing is by me getting my check on the 3rd, what happens is that my bill is due on the 28th. On the 3rd, that's 36 days. So it costs me $50. So what that translates into y'all is $300 extra a year that they get, that they're taking from me because I get paid on the 3rd. And I'm just wondering, where did these rules come from that you got 35 days to pay it? What about the people that's getting their checks on the 3rd? So I'm losing $300 a year just because the government decided that I get paid on the 3rd, and I don't think that's fair. And I was put into this situation because they said that my deposit was more important than what my bill. So that's all I mean. Like I said, I ain't gonna say too much because I don't want to be in the dark when I get home.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Tammy Cassida. I live at 4558 South Boston Highway, and I just have some questions I'd like to answer.
Yes, ma'am.
I was told that Danville Utilities is now the highest in the state of Virginia of all municipalities on their power rates, and is it true? I would like to know what kind of contract the city of Danville signed on our power rate and how long is that contract. I was informed that other municipalities purchase power from AMP Ohio. These municipalities are a lot smaller in scale than Danville and do not purchase as much power as Danville. How are their rates lower? The people of the county pay the same rate as the people that reside in the city, but yet the city is using the money from the revenue to revitalize the city. I read in the Danville Register and Bee that the city of Danville plans to lower rates on 7 industrial businesses. Does this mean the poor residential customers will have to make up the difference? What about the other industrial businesses? Why are they not entitled to a lower rate, and where will this stop? When the city purchased all new smart meters, what was the projected cost and what was the actual cost? Can somebody out there tell me who's making all these decisions? And I was also informed that they had a meeting last week that our power rates will go up again in June.
My name is Tony White. I'm at 316 Rambler Drive, and
I'm here simply because I'm just sick and tired of my fellow citizens suffering, just suffering for no reason at all. I volunteer a lot at God's Storehouse, so I get to see a lot of suffering firsthand, not only just from a food standard, but from the electric rates, from the city not really paying the correct amount of attention to what's really happening. I'm sick and tired of small businesses going out of business. I'm sick and tired of our citizens being on the hook, even with the Tobacco Commission, bad investment, bad deals. It seems like every time we get the worst of the worst. I was born and raised here, and it didn't just start. This has been really what the city has been going through for the last 30 years, and it seems like we can't employ the correct people or the people with enough knowledge to really get this city moving, like Lynchburg, Roanoke, Charlottesville, Richmond. I don't understand. Greensboro, the other state. I don't understand why we constantly suffer. And then our leadership, they act smart. They look smart, but something is wrong. And it really upsets me when, I sat back there and constantly heard all these horror stories. I'm thankful that I had not had to go that way as far as my utilities. I pretty much kept it in order because of burned wood. But my mom is 89 years old, and we moved out of a big Victorian house into a very small house that's owned by the government. It's efficient, windows and everything else. First moved there, her utility bills was probably $130, $140 a month. Now they $400-500 a month. And she's 89 years old. And she don't know how to set the thermostat. I set the thermostat. We keep everything in order. My aunt is 87 years old in the same condition. So we have some problems here, and we need to figure out how to actually get this fixed. A lot of our citizens don't know about a PCA. I understand that it's 40 million when it really is 30 million supposed to be in it. We got 10 million over. We're going to have 8 million, hopefully, with the recommendation to pay down the cost. But it's still, like the young lady said, it's not good enough. Our citizens shouldn't be suffering behind a utility bill. We shouldn't be losing residents behind of a utility bill. We shouldn't be denied good quality business in our city because of utility bills. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Beverly Richardson. I live at 731 Grove Street, and I am also a member of the Old West End. And if you're familiar with Old West End, it's a lot of old houses that we're trying to repair. I want to first say I do think the present people that are on City Council that are moving towards making Danville progress. I know that in the past we've had some issues, and I know that we cannot go back and redo these issues, and I hear all the complaints of the citizens, and they're duly noted. However, I want to make some recommendations, and I've given it a lot of thought. It's firsthand for me. And I would like to say to the Utility Commission, there should not have been any hesitation tonight to put a motion on the floor to make equal payment plans, given all the backlash that we've had with the utility bills. There seemed to be a hesitation to do that, and I'm just saying going forward, in the best interest of the citizen, because that's who we serve, we ought to always remember who we serve, and there should not have been a problem in putting that motion on the floor and seconding it, having discussion and moving forward. I do have an issue with that, and that surprised me coming from the Utility Commission. Second of all, the city manager, I believe that Mr. Larkin is doing a great job. I really do. I think that Mr. Larkin you should not have a commission on top of a commission and a task force to do what already you're getting firsthand knowledge from the citizens. You already have the input from the citizens. You don't need to pay a commission to tell you what you need to do. That is my experience. Third of all, I've audited too. I've got accounting audit background for manufacturing and service. I feel, and I want to strongly say this in layman's terms, an audit will comply whatever the conditions are that you're looking for. Garbage in, garbage out. If you give numbers, numbers can say whatever you want them to say. I know this. So I'm saying, I'm not coming here to make an accusation. What I am saying is this. The city hires people to do public service. The first order of business should always be to serve the taxpayer. That's what we're here for. I will also say this. I have no problem being an activist and a loudmouth. That's really not a problem with me. I've been that way forever. But I try to do it in the spirit of trying to help the city and wherever I am to be a better community. I want to say this. The utility department, from top to bottom, every position should be looked at to see if that person is in the best interest of the future of Danville. Because I feel, and I strongly feel, that when a person is in financial trouble, and Danville is 27% poverty rate, the second highest poverty rate in the state of Danville, it does not take a rocket science to see that we need to look at everything from top to bottom. And I think that's where we're at. I think that it's all right to be in a job for 20 or 30 years. I think it's all right to be a professional. But we're in a time of great change in this country, and we need to get on the ride, on the road to change. I think we're making progress in Danville. I am pleased with some of the things I have seen in Danville. I am not pleased with the utility rates. I am not pleased with the attitudes in the customer service department. I am not pleased at all with the insensitive nature that some of the city employees have when it comes to addressing the concerns of the citizens. And if you're not there to serve the public, I really feel that the city needs to look, Mr. Larkin, look from top to bottom. And if you find anything that should not be in a person's attitude serving the public, I'm going to ask you to respectfully remove them. Because we have come to a point in Danville that we can make it. We can progress and we can be better. But I feel so often the upset and the backlash comes from a lack of communication, and regardless of who it is or what strata of life they come from, if you walk into a public arena and you pay taxes and everybody pays taxes, if you pay taxes, the least people should do is hear you out and not turn you away. And I feel like the Danville Utility Department has been getting away with murder when it comes to customer service. In 101, they would get an F. They would get it. And there are certain individuals there, they should retire them. They have been there too long, and I hate to say that. They've been there too long. And if your concern is that if people don't matter that you serve, if that's your concern, that people don't matter, you're in the wrong business. And I don't feel that Danville is going in the wrong direction. I think we got some problems, and we realize we got some problems tonight. But I would say to the Utility Commission, you all have to ask the hard questions. If AMP, or whoever it is, AEP or AMP, is selling you a bill of goods, you've got to make them show their hand. And I think that's what it comes down to. And I think, Mr. Shanks, you have done that. I think that you do an excellent job of asking the tough questions. I listen. But I think that everybody, and I'm not saying the other members don't, but I see too much pacifism, too much reluctance to ask the hard questions. And if you're running to serve the public, you ought to at least do diligence and ask the tough questions.
Richardson?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
How's everyone doing? My name is Preston Cobbs, and I'm a reverend. And I travel in and out of town, and I see some stuff here, and I see some things going on. Have we defined the average job rate in this city? Have we defined the average age group in this city? Have we defined these things to make the 42,000? I went to the light bill place, and as everyone has said, that definitely need to be a change in that office. I've had to come here a couple of times to complain about them. And when I came here, nothing was changed. At the light bill place, there was a lady that was about 84 years old. And she told the lady, "This is my first time ever doing this, because when I lost my husband, he took care of all this. I think the latest light bill was almost $900. She said, my check isn't but $700. They told her to pay the whole $700, and anything left over would come on the next light bill plus that light bill, and told her that she needed to pay all that. That lady told them right there in their face, I might as well go home and die. And this is what I'm thinking, that a lot is happening. We're building a city saying that it's the river district, this and that, but if you don't have any money, why are you building the city? We're more concerned about the river district, but what about the neighborhoods that surround us? Plenty of these houses have aluminum siding or vinyl siding done years ago. And then you say, well, installate this. I put in brand new windows, thermal pane. I put a brand new water system. I put brand new central heat and air that runs on gas, and my bill went up $300. So what is the use of us getting here trying to pull people's heads around when things need to change? There's a lot of change need to be done in this city. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at some of y'all's faces, and you're smiling and you're bowing your heads, you're looking up in the ceiling. But after this day, if y'all don't have a change to come, y'all need to move on. You need to find the city that needs somebody to laugh at the people instead of helping the people. Because right now it's not working in this city. I'm hearing one neighbor to the next neighbor to the next neighbor saying, what is going to happen to us? If it's something that's going to be more than a horror film, don't you know in the end you're going to have to answer to God for the things that you are doing? You're going to have to sit before him and explain to him why this does not affect you. We're God's children. And when you are doing things to hurt God's children, you have to answer to those things. It doesn't matter what you have or what. Some people didn't get to the point that you all are with education and with businesses and with things going on. They didn't get that. They made it through Dan River, and they're proud of the things they got. But now it looked like you're taking things from them when they get to an older age. We're tearing houses down in the city left and right. Just in the newspaper, you said that it was $16,000 or $18,000 that the city is paying to 3 or 4 empty buildings. Shut the lights off. Close the door. If it's no good or something like that, back out of that. Let the lights go off. But don't let people pay $18,000, $20,000 taxpayer money for a building that's useless. We have to change. We got to sit down. Tonight, y'all need to go home and sit down. If you call this one, that one, call them on the phone and tell them something must change in this city. And it's not later, it's now. It's now. We need change in this city now, not tomorrow, but right now. We need to have some amendments made. And if you can't agree with them, get out of the office and let somebody get in there that's concerned about these people. Because we're not doing anything. You have another meeting coming, the same thing you're going to hear again. But something should be said to where we change from this meeting to the next meeting. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Cobbs.
My name is Nasser Abu Znaid. I live at 443 Hawthorne Drive, and I also own Old Dutch down the street. I got it like 3 years ago, and it used to be in high like for 5,200. Nowadays it's 63 at 6,500. And when I do the math, this is like 20% increase. Now, how much? All the time they're talking about it went up and whatever, but how much did it actually go up? I mean, did it go up 20%? That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate.
I didn't use my 4 or 5 minutes. May I say something else?
She didn't use it.
I put in insulation in the house that I'm buying now, and I have new windows. This year has been colder than last year, but these utilities, I think are you Gray? You said earlier that it's going to get better in the future. I've been so stressed out about these utility bills. Once I pay the mortgage, I don't pay anything else. I'm just waiting for the 11th till the utility bill come. I haven't been to the hairdresser since November. I don't go out to eat. I haven't bought any clothes. I went to the hospital last week with chest pains and a severe headache with a dangerously high blood pressure. They said the psychiatrist, after they did the EKGs and blood work and everything, said it was stress because of these bills. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening.
Good afternoon. My name is Mildred Hassel. I was born and raised in Danville, and I moved back here about 2 years ago. It is not the way I remember it being. To me, Danville has went down. The community is really a disaster. Homes are being abandoned. People are living under their means. And when it comes to this electric light bill that we have here, I just don't understand it. I go away from Danville to New York for a month on back to back. I come back, my light bill is sky high. And I don't understand that because there's no one in the house, it's just me, and my light bill is outrageous. And earlier, Mr. Gray has said over the TV that we would see a little different this month. I did not see it. I seen $100 more each month. And I'm not doing anything different than I always have done. And right now, I turn my heat completely off because of this extra $100. And it doesn't make sense that people have to live the way they are living in Danville, Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I do appreciate, on behalf of the Commission, our citizens and our ratepayers coming this evening to express their concerns, which we share. We pay the utilities too. We've seen the increases. We have, I have an old Victorian house on West Main Street, and I've put tens of thousands of dollars into the home to try to keep my utilities down. And you know what? I've had the fortune to be able to do that. And I know many people in the room tonight do not share that fortune. Yes, we made a lot of poor decisions in the latter part of the 2000s as we lost, quite frankly, a sweetheart power agreement that we had for many years. I wish we could undo those decisions. But there's some very well-paid lawyers who know how to write contracts. And unfortunately, we're on the hook. But I will say this. I've been in Danville almost 20 years now. I'm not a resident of Danville. But I'm proud to be from here. And we are, I think, a resilient group of people. And I do believe that we have the opportunity to take what concerns you voiced today. We're going to distill those concerns so that we have an opportunity as a commission next month to examine what we heard. There were some consistencies here that, quite frankly, disturbed me. And there are some opportunities for things to be addressed. On a personal note, how many folks are on an equal payment plan? Raise your hands. Okay? My goodness, folks, if there is anything that I hope you do leaving tonight, Mr. Larkin, when will we be able to get that equal payment plan available as we discussed earlier today?
I'd have to ask.
Immediately.
Pretty much immediately.
Pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
I implore you, I really implore you to take advantage of the equal payment plan. That's a step that you can take today, and we need to make sure that our customer service organization is well set up to help people do this. What it will...
Because if you have a rate increase over that 12-month period of that equal payment plan, you're paying $250 or whatever each month consistently. At the end of that 12 months, if you've had a rate hike, that's going to be added to that last fee.
Ma'am, they factor any anticipated rate hikes into them. I've been in the equal payment plan. When I moved to Danville back in the early 2000s, I had $1,000 and $1,200 bills in my home. It was a shock. Coming from having originally lived way up north. But they do a pretty good job of actually factoring if that's going to occur into that payment plan. I have never been in arrears. Never. It's a start, and it's something that an individual can do today. I think we talked today about the fact that we have a fund balance. And those fund balances, that represents the cash that is a business we have to keep on hand. And that's a fact. I mean, we're not sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars that allow us to be able to reduce and defer payments. I wish we were, but we're not. But I really do appreciate everything that you all shared with us this evening. With staff, we'll be actually reviewing what we learned this evening at our next commission meeting. And we will make sure that we get our punch list put together and begin to work on things that we can work on. And from a transparency perspective, all of these folks, we're all volunteers. And we also are citizens here as well. People know how to get a hold of us. Please do. That's part of the job. We have a meeting next month. They're held in here. You want to come to the meeting? Please do. Okay? These are open meetings because, as you said, this utility is for the benefit of those who are citizens of Danville and ultimately for the benefit of those who are customers of Danville as well. Could we do a lot better? Absolutely. Will we do better? Yes. Yes. Thank you.